Okay, yeah.
They're okay with you being the host and not so Mark first or whoever they
He's a co-host. We can switch.
I'm fine as a co-host. The only difference between co-host and host is starting YouTube live and starting the instruction, starting the interpretation, which Carlos, you're doing the interpretation?
Yes, sir.
We usually don't start it till after we call the meeting to order. Okay.
Okay. I'll wait.
No, I just want to make sure Kevin knows how to do that.
Yeah. I'm the host now.
You're the host, right? That's what they want this time, right? Correct? Just confirming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me use the facilities. I'll be right back.
Laura? Could you unmute?
Yes, I'm here.
I'm bringing in people through items, through the report, different reports. If there's people, you know, through items L. There's other people. I don't know everyone to bring in. If there's others you need to bring them in.
Okay.
Brad, Peter, we need Linda, right? Who of our, you need to bring in our students and our presenters, our reported adult school and
Laura, you have that, right? Okay.
and we can begin if we can find Linda. Is Stephanie Funk adult school?
Yes.
And we don't have a classified.
Mark, I'm working on finding Carrie Velez to bring her in.
Okay, if I see her, I'll bring her in. She might not come today. I'm looking for Linda. Jessie Sharma, shouldn't we bring her in?
Sorry, yes.
I got it. We will start as soon as Trustee Lees Dwyer shows up. Okay, are we ready to begin? Linda, are you there?
Mr. Friedman, we don't have Liz McManus. I'm looking for her.
Oh, okay. Sometimes it's under Elizabeth.
Ms. Chalkley, could we start, perhaps we could start without her. I mean, I don't think she needs to be moved to panelist right away.
Yeah, she's not presenting till, if she's
Yeah,
lucky,
so-
at 8:30.
Yeah, and we finished closed session late, so she may need a,
I would prefer that she be a panelist, actually.
oh, well, she will, as soon as she shows up. And maybe you can text her.
She's
Okay.
not here is the problem.
Okay, once she
I'm
gets here,
texting her
let's-
right now.
Yeah, we'll move her there.
And just move in everyone who's through item K, please. Okay, item L, excuse me, through regular reports. So this is a public, I'm calling this meeting to order of the San Mateo Union High School District. It's 7:04 p.m. This is a public meeting of the San Mateo Union High School District Board of Trustees. If you wish to make a comment about an agenda item or during the public comment section at the beginning of the agenda, please send an email to comments@smuhsd.org. That's comments@smuhsd.org with your name, email address, and your Zoom name if it's different from your name you give us, and the item under which you wish to comment. We've already received about 7 or 8 requests, and we already have those. So we're looking for any new requests, which will be recognized if they're made before that item opens. The board president, will call on you. Please note that comments are limited to 3 minutes, and I may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation, depending on the topic, a number of persons wishing to be heard. Will our translator, Mr. Nolasco, please translate this? And then Dr. Skelly will enable the formal English to Spanish to English translation.
Ok, sir. Buenas noches. Voy a estar interpretando. Si ustedes quieren coger el lenguaje, abajito de su pantalla verán español, inglés y me imagino que otras lenguas. Escojan español si quieren traducción, interpretación en español. Gracias.
Okay, the English and Spanish interpretation is available for those who need it. We are returning from closed session where we did not take any action. A roll call. Mr. Land.
Present.
Miss Lees Dwyer.
I'm present. Are you aware that your camera is off?
No,
Well, you're aware now.
now it's on.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So Miss Lees Dwyer is present. Mr. Hanley.
Yes, you.
Miss Vice President Griffin.
Present.
And I'm present. Dr. Skelly, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Lees Dwyer, second by Mr. Griffin. Mr. Land, how did you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Lees Dwyer,
Yes.
Mr. Hanley,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
And I vote yes, the agenda is approved. Next up is public and/or governing board comments. I show no public comments. Is that correct, Ms. Chalkley?
That is correct.
Governing board comments, Mr. Land.
I'm going to keep it brief because I'd like to save my comments for later when we talk about President Friedman.
Oh, no. Ms. Lees Dwyer.
I'm saving all of my comments for when we talk about Mr. Friedman.
Mr. Hanley, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
No, I'm doing the same thing tonight.
Mr. Griffin.
I'll say the same thing I said last week. Heaven forbid I should say something after the first three pass. So.
Okay, we'll move on then. We're going to move on to communications to the board. There's nothing there. Consent agenda. We're going to pull item, I got to find my notes here. Item K6 because we have a public comment who wishes to speak about item K6. Does anyone wish to pull any other items? If not, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda less K6?
I move approval less K6.
Second.
So motion by Ms. Lees Dwyer, second by Mr. Land. Mr. Land, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Lees Dwyer,
Yes.
Mr. Hanley,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
and I vote yes. The consent agenda item less K6 is approved. We'll move on to item K6, approval additionally cultural relevant English classroom materials. Ms. Delahunt asked to speak on that item. You have 3 minutes from the time you begin speaking.
So I'm going to use part of my 3 minutes to just say thank you for your service, Mr. Friedman. I do appreciate everything you've done for the children of this district. Okay, so first I want to say thank you so much. I hope you approve this. I hope that goes through. I actually don't doubt that it will. So I'm not going to say, please do it, because I think you're going to do it. Here's what I will say. To the folks at Cappuccino High School who put this forward, I'm calling you out and saying thank you. I do believe we should always commend folks for doing that. I'm a firm believer of calling folks out and applauding anti-bias and anti-racist forward thinkers. So I don't know how else to say it, but publicly, so thank you to the English teachers at Cappuccino who are doing this important work. Thank you so much for that. And here's my hope is that you share the materials that you're gathering around this, your curriculum, with the other folks in the district, because it's so important that we do this. And if you have things around it, it would be so helpful to your colleagues, because they've all agreed that this is great. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. As a woman of color in this town and this county, I appreciate you doing that. Second, I would ask that I think it's fabulous that it's going on this list of books that we have here in this district, but I would ask this. We have a lot of other books on this district. It's really not enough that Cappuccino is doing it and that we're putting it on this list. I would really love if every single school English department would read at least this book, Between the World and Me. It is so relevant right now. This book especially. I love James Baldwin, don't get me wrong. It was written quite a long while ago. This book is relevant immediately. So I'm asking for the other schools in this district, Burlingame, San Mateo, Hillsdale, all of you, please, English departments, I'm asking you to consider following Cappuccino's lead and put this somewhere next year in your English literature departments. I don't know where it's going to go, but it really should go somewhere. I think it's incredibly important and relevant right now for all of your students to read this book more than ever. And so I'm just asking you to do that. Please follow Cappuccino's lead and read this book. Thank you, and good luck, Mr. Friedman.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Item K6, do I hear a motion to approve?
I make a
So
motion.
moved.
Move. Second.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Mr. Land, seconded by Mr. Griffin. Sorry, Linda.
Okay.
Mr. Land, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Leach Dwyer,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Hanley,
Yes.
and I vote yes. The motion carries 5-0. Moving on, report of the superintendent, Dr. Skelly.
Thank you very much. Let's see. I want to just start with a brief report. I had a chance to attend the CSEA holiday virtual event. I started off as the Grinch, but then I changed into Santa Claus, and we had as much fun as you can have. We are well aware that the number of cases in our areas are exploding, and we're watching this data carefully, and we're also watching the vaccination regime here, and we're very excited about the latter and very disturbed by the former. We, in response to some of the cases, even though we're not under as much strictures as some of the other counties, we have started to close down some of our pods for these last weeks before we go through. And then we hope to start those up a couple of weeks after we return in the spring. I've also had a chance to attend some of the plays and the music concerts. It's just remarkable what our staff and students are pulling off in this environment. They're just great shows. The creativity of our teachers and our students is just remarkable. And I had a chance to talk to the student activities directors this afternoon with Ms. Chalkley, and we need to provide more information about all the things, the activities that are going on school. I've talked a lot about the athletics, but there's a whole bunch of other things that folks are doing. I also had the chance this week on Monday night to attend the work by the family engagement folks who are working with our Latino parents. They had the Samaritan House staff come and describe their program and the offerings in the community. And it was remarkable how many questions there were and how many stories of suffering and difficulty are happening right now in our community that we need to continue to address. They're serious. And for those of us who are in a position to help, we certainly, this is the year to do it. So next, I want to start with the honoring of Board President Mark Friedman. This is his last board meeting. I think he has 9.5 years of service to this district. He was also he also served on the Burlingame School District board. He has been involved in a lot of things, and I'm going to make a few comments when we're done, but I want to first introduce his family who are here on the call. His daughter Kara is here, and Madeline, his wife, is here, as well as Rebecca. We certainly welcome you to the board meeting. We'd rather you were in person, but that's not possible. It's so nice of you to come. Thank you for lending us your husband and father these past 9.5 years. We have some folks here who are going to speak. I'd like to introduce Kevin Fong, who is here from Assemblyman Kevin Mullen's office, who's going to say a few words. And then we have a certificate from the California legislature here that will, I know, that will get to Mr. Friedman. So with that, Mr. Fong, I'm going to turn it over to you for some comments.
Well, thank you so much, Superintendent Skelly and members of the board. It's a pleasure being with you this evening as we honor and recognize Trustee Friedman for his years of dedicated service, not only to the San Mateo Union High School District, but to this Burlingame Elementary School District as well. Mark, during your time on the board, you've had to navigate the district through some very challenging times, but through it all, you never lost sight of what was most important. And that's and that is the student you and the board are charged to serve. Your contributions to the education of the district students have been invaluable. It wasn't always easy, but you've made a positive impact on the students and they've greatly benefited from your service. And as an elected official, I think that's all you can really ask for, is to leave the place better than when you found it. And I think you've certainly done that. As you leave the board and start the next chapter, your presence will be missed, but you leave as a model for other educators to follow. So with that being said, on behalf of Assemblymember Mullen, as Superintendent Skelly had mentioned, we have a certificate of recognition we'd like to present to you. Obviously, we wish we were doing this in person, but nonetheless, it's a certificate in recognition of your years of dedicated service. So on behalf of Assemblymember Mullen, thank you again for your service to the students at San Mateo Union High School District, and we wish you nothing but the best in the future.
Thank you. I'll give you a virtual handshake.
Our next speaker is County Supervisor Dave Pine. Mr. Pine.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to join you. It's hard to believe that this is Mark Friedman's last school board meeting. 19 years serving on school boards between the Burlingame School District and the San Mateo Union High School District. Well, that's a lot. That's a lot of meetings. There's a lot of budgets that have been carefully dissected, a lot of parcel taxes and bonds, a lot of superintendents that have been hired. And I feel fortunate, Mark, that we were able to serve together for 4 years on the Burlingame School District Board, where I was just amazed by your analytical mind and your passion for public education. But I gotta say, the first time I watched you in action, I really didn't know what to make of you, man. It was spring of 2003, and I was interested in a parcel tax that the Burlingame School District was thinking of doing. I went to the board meeting, and I was watching you, I think you were just going into this budget like in incredible detail. You were asking all these hard questions, and I said to myself, man, this guy, like, he's a little rough around the edges, and I don't know if he has a filter. I kind of shook my head. But Mark, I came to see that you are the kind of person that every governing board should have. You have a gift for finances and numbers. You have such an inquisitive mind. You're a superb writer and communicator. And your willingness to just say it like it is, ask tough questions and just put yourself out there is really brings a ton of value. And of course, your quick wit and sense of humor just makes it a pleasure to work with you, Mark. So, you're one of a kind. We're lucky that you brought your unique skills and personality to bear to help the children of Burlingame and the San Mateo Union High School District, and indeed the county. So congratulations on all you've accomplished, and you'll be remembered for a long time for everything that you've done to help our children.
Thank you.
All right, so yeah, I'm good. So next we have a chance to show some slides here of Mark. Let's see, first of all, here's the certificate that was offered. Let's go to the next slide. This is a picture. These pictures were shared with us by his family here. Let's see, you see his daughters here. And Mark, I know you're going to do some traveling here when you go. When you finish on the board, you were talking about going to Hawaii even next week, but I think that's canceled because you're following the protocols here. Next slide. So these are some pictures that we came up with when we were looking. These are just a few of the photos that we put together that recognize some of your events. That's the reopening of the Burlingame pool. It's bowling. Some of the, when we were in person, honoring various people when they retired, or different events with the city. And then some of our, I think those are our National Merit Scholars. Oh no, that's the Daily Journal when we recognized the kids who are the student editorial writers. Next slide. So here's some more pictures, recognizing folks with your fellow board members and student board members. And then I think this other photo at the bottom here, that might be the National Merit Scholar one. But anyway, so many fun memories. We could have a long slideshow, but we won't tonight in the interest of time. Next slide. So we were talking about the numbers. Certainly 200 plus board meetings with us, 2 terms as the board president, over 18,000 graduates, success on 3 bond measures. That's probably almost, well, it's certainly well over a half of, $500 million, and countless county school board association meetings, and then also at the state level. So your contributions have been outsized for a board member. Your commitment both to the students in our district, to the county and the state are exemplary, and we're just really going to miss your analytical mind, your deep passion for the work, and how you do your homework every board meeting. So we have a couple of things here for you. This is a plaque that we typically give, something like this, to all board members when they finish their term as president, but this one is a little more inclusive of your time. The folks at Peninsula High School, we were hoping to have an in-person recognition of this building, the completion of this building. Unfortunately, both the situation which we're in and then the slight delay in the opening of Peninsula have put this back. But you are a great champion of that project as well, the construction of Peninsula High School and the new location for it. And so we have a sweatshirt here with your name on it. And then we know also that you are going to be teaching you'll continue to be a university professor. And this world of teaching and working on Zoom is really hard. So we went to our expert and the district technology to say, what could we get you that would serve you well as you continue to Zoom around. And so they recommended this Beats Solo 3 speaker, headphones, because, it's not easy doing this. And you've had 1 or 2, I think you've been extraordinary at managing this, but you've had a couple of moments here, and hopefully this will, with your additional skills and then with this technology, you'll be in good form. So that concludes my comments. I know other folks have things to say, but really we will certainly miss you.
I think my daughters are like putting their hands in for the beats, but we'll let it go. You're muted, Kevin.
Well, we'll go around the room like you do, and we'll start with you, Greg.
Okay, awesome. Madeline, good to see you. Aren't you glad this is the last one for him? I know. Mark, we are of a special group, and in fact, only in the 4 of us are in a super elite group. You and I have both served on Burlingame and San Mateo Union High School District. I've known you for forever, it seems. I know at least 15 years, going on 16 actually. And Dave kind of stole my thunder because he nailed you. He basically told you exactly what I thought too. But here's some things that I will say. The other day, I know Davina and Kay retired off of the Burlingame School Board, and I told them, we need to have an alumni group. There's a definite alumni group that we're going to have to say for that board. And then this board, the ones who served on both, that would be Linda, you, me, and Dave, 4 of us. So we are an elite group. If you ever seen Saturday Night Live, there's that special club of the over 5 hosts. We have that special club that we're in. When I first met you, it was early in the school boards, and we were in closed session, and you blew me away. I consider you the human calculator. You could tell me what 1% raise was off the top of your head, nothing in front of you, and I was just in awe going, okay, this guy knows his stuff. What I know is, yes, you are incredible with numbers. And the one lesson that I've always will learn, and every CBO from now to however I stay on this board will know that the actuals are going to be a lot better off because it always is better in the, they always project for the worst, and and they always get it wrong, and you always know it's going to be better, and it's because of you. I know this. Second thing, you are a man of much integrity and much conviction. We don't always agree. In fact, we agree quite a bit. But once in a while we disagree. But I've always respected your knowledge. You're willing to stick with it. You're willing to just call it like it is, like Dave said. But you are truly a man of conviction, and I respect that in you. Even when we don't always agree. The other thing I was going to say was you also are one of great ideas. And you know what? That's the one thing that I'm going to miss the most about you is you always think outside the box. You always think about something that may happen. You think of all these different ideas just coming left and right and center. And that is truly something that's not everybody can do. And that I think is going to be a huge loss for our school board. So hopefully you and I can go bike riding now that you're retired. We'll have to do some bike riding. I consider you a friend, and I really feel like you've done a great job for both boards. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm next, right? Yes? Mark, am I next?
Yeah, okay. I
Okay.
thought Kevin was going to run the show, but you
Okay.
can go next.
I think I'll go next. Okay, if you can hear me. First, there's two things that I always go back to when I think about you and about, I've known you, it seems like forever, and Madeline. But I think of you as a soccer coach. And when I was reffing soccer and you were coaching, to me, you were the poster coach. You were the guy who put the special ed kid on the field equally with everyone else. And every time that child touched the ball, you cheered. I will never forget that as a referee. You were the guy, if I had a gold card, I would have given it to. We had an exchange student from Brazil, lovely gal, still in touch with her. She just graduated from law school, by the way, Isadora. Mark picked her up. She got excited. Her friend said, let me play on this. She played soccer. Let me play on the softball team. And I said to Mark, oh my God, this girl, she's never played softball. He goes, that's not a problem. He picked her up. He taught her softball and lent her his daughter's helmet, which I am going to return to your house because it's sitting in my garage right now. But that's kind of who I've always known Mark to be. So I prepared a top 10 because I am from Indiana and we do those things. So I'm going to go down with the least to the most, okay? Number 1, Mark is very intelligent. Number 2, Mark is always prepared. Number 3, Mark is very active. San Mateo County School Boards, he goes to plays, he goes to games. Number 4, Mark listens to everyone. Number 5, Mark is willing to advocate. Number 6, Mark is willing to be wrong. Number 7, Mark bears no grudges. Number 8, Mark believes in equity 100%. Number 9, Mark is one of the most fair people I've known in my entire life. And number 10, and I think the most important, is Mark is a very kind person. And everything he's done on this board and in his life that I've observed has been with kindness. And for that, I will always be grateful. And I'm not going to cry. Thank you. I'm going to cry. Stop it, Bob. That's not fair.
I think you're next, Peter.
Okay, well, I will certainly miss Mark on this board. It's always hard to lose a compatible working partner in an endeavor like this, and Mark has been a good friend as well as a close partner in advocating for kids very strongly at all times, and so we share a lot of the same views on where education needs to go, where school reform needs to go. We've partnered in a number of areas in helping to move the district in direction of creating more opportunities for parents being able to choose a school they want to go to within the district, in making sure that you know, the traditionally underserved kids are get the attention that they need, and we share a lot of interests, particularly in hockey. So I still look forward to, if we can ever get through this, and we can ever get sports back where fans can go, I still look forward to going to hockey games together. But I will miss our Thursday evenings on the board together, and I look forward to still sharing our friendship or in the coming years. But it's been a great experience serving the last 9.5 years together with Mark.
Okay, I guess I'm next. And what can I say that hadn't been said, apparently? You know, I have really enjoyed working with you, Mark. I got to say, the first time, you know, I'm sure you hit some nerve like a tooth, or like you stepped on one of my bunions, but it has been a genuine pleasure. You know, I have just enjoyed it. I think Dave Pine said you don't have, either Dave or Greg said you don't have a filter, and you're right. There is no filter for Mark Friedman. Whatever it is what it is. So it's funny because both of us are numbers guys, and I guess I went to the linear organized school of thought and processing data, and you went to some other school from some other world, because quite frankly, we do end up at the same spot often. And, you know, you're pulling all these things out of the air, and, you know, your little wheels, I guess I have little wheels in my head, and they sort of go around in a circle, and you've got super processors in there, and it's just like zip, and it's done. So, I mean, I've appreciated the way you've done your business. I've appreciated your math. You've actually been a really solid board member. You've been a passionate advocate for students the entire time you're here. I've enjoyed the experience. And just like in a yearbook, and you know, and this is, I'm signing your yearbook, a famous quote from Mark Friedman, "You know what I mean." And that's all I have to say.
So, Dr. Skelly, do you have anything more, or do I get to talk?
You talk, go ahead, the floor is yours.
Okay, I have a few comments, and they're probably unfiltered, but especially near the end. But I want to say it's been my privilege and honor to serve the district and our community over these last 9.5 years. It truly has. And I just want to thank, you know, my fellow board members, Dave Pine. Dave, you realize this is your seat. I wouldn't have gotten it if you hadn't 9.5 years ago told the existing board, written them a letter and said, or written them an email or whatever, and said, you need to appoint Mark Friedman to this seat. I'm not sure they would have appointed me, and then I wouldn't have run for the elections and so forth. But I want to thank my fellow board members, Dave Pine, Kevin Fong, if you're still here, thank you, and Assemblyman Mullen for your kind comments, certificates. Thank you, Dr. Skelly, for your comments in the district, for the plaques and the gifts and so forth. I really appreciate it. I also want to thank my wife, Madeline, and my daughters for their support as I've served on school boards in Burlingame and here in San Mateo High School Board since 2001. So when I look back over the last 9.5 years at San Mateo Union High School District, this district has accomplished so much. We have built and developed an excellent staff of administrators, teachers, classified workers, and staff. We've established ourselves as a premier place to work and educate youth, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that, but I got to recognize This is in part, this is due to my colleagues on the board. We, I think, have set a standard in the county for how a school board should work. As a member of the, as active in the County School Boards Association, I keep getting asked by other members of other boards, how do you do this at our district and so forth? We work hard and we collaborate to manage the district. And I'm really proud of that, and I'm proud of all four of you and how we work together. I'm also very proud of all the capital improvements we've made in the district over the last 10 years. Our facilities are top notch. These facilities and our staff have made our communities destinations for families who want an excellent public education. We see that even in this time of COVID, where our district, where our property values, our homes, if you look at the real estate statistics, are hitting new record highs because family after family are, bidding up the price of homes because they want to live here. And I don't doubt that's because of our excellent public schools. I'm also very proud of the financial condition we're leaving the district. We have strong revenue growth, an excellent ending balance position, and not to mention about $500 billion in capital funds for future facility upgrades and staff housing. Whoever is hired to take Liz's job gets a $500 million head start, and I'm proud of that. Now I'll be a little, maybe not so much, with not so much filter. I have one major regret about the 9.5 years on the board that I'll spend a few minutes on to close. That regret is we just haven't made the progress I would have liked to have seen us make on closing the achievement gap and creating equity. As I thought about it today, we just haven't taken the risks necessary to make major progress on this matter. And it's all our faults, teachers, administrators, and board members. To do so, we must be willing to leave our comfort zone and take risks if we hope to close this achievement gap. And as I look back on it, I sort of came to the conclusion, our approach to doing things like on the achievement gap and so forth, where revolutionary change needs to make, has been a conservative approach, and this just doesn't work. I came across the writings of the British philosopher Michael Oakeshott. He wrote a little something, I just came across these writings, he wrote a little something comparing conservatism to progressivism or liberalism. And he said, he wrote, to be conservative is to prefer the familiar to the unknown, to prefer the tried to the untried, fact to mystery, the actual to possible, the limited to the unbounded, the near to the distant, the sufficient to the superabundant, the convenient to the perfect, present laughter to utopian bliss. He was actually arguing for conservatism. I disagree. Regrettably, how he describes conservatism is how our district has approached the achievement gap. But what I'd like to see us going forward, I want to encourage all of us, teachers, administrators, board members, all district stakeholders, to take risks, leave our comfort zone, explore the unknown, try the untried, and strive for the possible. And thank you very much. I'll let you keep applauding. I still have to run the meeting, I guess. Moving on is item L2, report of the student board members. Ms. Sharma, are you going to go first, or Ms.
Yeah, I can go first.
Gassamina?
Hello. First of all, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Friedman, for your service to the board. It's been very nice getting to know you through Zoom meetings, and we all really appreciate you taking student voices into consideration, even if it's not said as much as it should. We definitely appreciate it. First, I would just like to say there's not really much to report on because students have mostly just been preparing for finals and awaiting winter break. But a few concerns that I have that I can reflect back on the entire semester has been the learning loss that students have been facing all semester. And Zoom school is very challenging, and we feel that there's not enough resources that are accommodating to our needs. Being on Zoom 5 days a week from 9 to 3 is very tiring, eye straining, and we lose our focus throughout the day. And it's just very hard to just constantly be on the screens trying to focus. Though there's not much that you can do for that, what can be done is giving us back asynchronous Wednesdays and having it be a part of our schedule in the spring semester. We are aware of the support periods, but looking at our screens all day just to get onto another Zoom after school sounds extremely tiring, and some students aren't willing to do that just because our computers overheat, we could have internet issues. I personally have been kicked off of a lot of Zoom meetings because of my internet issues, so sometimes that stops me from being able to go to support periods. Yeah, students really just had loved asynchronous Wednesday of the day just to catch up and really understand the concepts that we have been learning. However, the two trial days were not enough for us, and every Wednesday after that, I just remember being in my class and all of my peers around me were asking students if this Wednesday was going to be asynchronous or not. So we definitely prefer to have it implemented into our weekly schedules. And we do feel a huge debt in our education because of this pandemic, and we really need all the support that we can get. And asynchronous Wednesdays would really help us have the time to catch up and meet with teachers about what we don't understand in class. We really just ask you to definitely reconsider this in putting it into our schedules next semester, because of like the health situation right now, it's not really looking like we're going to be going back to school anytime soon. And even if we did, a majority of students that I personally have just talked to, this is all my experience, but they don't really feel comfortable going back. So we would definitely need to look at the resources that we can provide to the students that are staying home and to the students that are in person. But yeah, that's all I really had to say. Thank you for your consideration about this.
Thank you, Ms. Gassaminia. Please help me with your name.
Gassaminia. I also just like Jesse, I also really wanted to thank Mr. Friedman for all the work that you've done for our district. And I'm also really glad that I've gotten to know you this year. For my little like segment of the report, I kind of wanted to add on to what Jesse was talking about. So kind of just talking about my feelings over the past semester. I feel like sometimes my role has become kind of performative, because I feel like after that initial board meeting when we proposed asynchronous Wednesdays, I've had like numerous students from different grade levels at my school come up to me or chat me in the chat, or like teachers telling me that like people are talking about asynchronous Wednesdays and want to know more about it and the possibility, and like telling me to continue to fight for it. So I feel like because of that, sometimes since like nothing's happening, I feel like me coming and talking has become a little performative about that. So as of now, the proposed schedule that I've seen for kind of like the first few weeks when we come back doesn't have asynchronous days. And I feel like that was kind of disappointing for a lot of students. So just like Jesse, I kind of wanted to urge the board and the district to really like discuss asynchronous Wednesdays again, just in case we don't get to go back on a large scale, even if that's just like for the first like month or two of distance learning at the beginning. So that's kind of all I wanted to say. I hope you guys continue to consider that, especially if we're not able to go back, because I feel like if we don't go back, it's going to become extremely unsustainable for students across the district.
Thank you. Report of the District Teachers Association representative, Mr. Childress.
Thank you. Good evening, President Friedman, members of the board, and district cabinet. It's hard to believe that we're at the end of the semester already and we're all preparing for finals. It's been a challenging semester, as we all know, students, parents, teachers, everyone. First, I'd like to just also comment on Mark's tenure as a board member. I've truly appreciated his open door policy, his honesty, and his candor in all the conversations that we've had offline. I really do appreciate his service to the board and the service to the district and the students of this district. So thank you, Mark. I'm truly grateful for many aspects of my job. I'm fortunate to have a career that I love and that is very rewarding, even in the hardest times. Make no mistake, our current parameters for teaching are nothing to celebrate. I think I can safely say that 100% of our 500 plus teachers would rather be in a pre-COVID environment. I think that's probably true of the balance of the 1,000 or so total employees of the district. I'm also grateful that I am able to collaborate with other educators and managers in a meaningful and productive way to tackle the complex problem of a return to school plan. Again, no one wants to be back to normal more than the teachers. We love teaching. It's what we do, and it's who we are. Unfortunately, we're still in the middle, or perhaps maybe even the beginning, of a global pandemic. It's hard to believe that I have to keep saying that, but it seems that so many seem to forget it. As you know, we're recording well over 200,000 cases per day, and we've finally passed the inevitable and horrific milestone of 3,000 deaths per day. In San Mateo County, we've reached the purple status, not a good thing. And we've seen a 68% increase in weekly new cases just this week. Our 7-day new case rate per 100,000 is 11.6. Surprisingly, if you exclude the prison populations, it goes up. It soars to 18.5 per 100,000. That's well over 2 times the purple tier threshold of 8 per 100,000. Again, nothing to be proud of. In our own district, students and staff continue to test positive, with 2 on-campus employees just today. At around 16 million cases nationwide, approximately 5% of the population has been infected. As you know, that number is likely far lower than the actual value due to limited testing and inaccurate assessment. I know some of you read the reports from the most respected epidemiologists and public health experts. Whether you do or not, however, you should know that collectively they conservatively estimate that the eventual number will represent at least 50% of the US population infected, with or without a vaccine. That's a conservative estimate. We have a long way to go. Hospitals are beginning to become overwhelmed and are now starting to contemplate rationing care. That is truly staggering. So please stop suggesting that it is teacher fear that is impeding the return to the buildings. Please stop suggesting that all it will take is teachers getting more comfortable with the obvious increased risk of indoor gatherings during this pandemic. Stop blaming unions for advocating for the safety of our students and teachers. Teachers' unions have been the first to advocate for increased government funding to address the needs for the return to school. Stop blaming unions for trying to prevent further limitations on the learning models. Stop implying that unions are preventing teachers from teaching. School is open. Teachers and students are working harder than ever. Burnout is real. Bringing students and teachers into the buildings before it's safe will not make us more comfortable. To be clear, I am not comfortable. I'm not comfortable with the fact that remote learning is not as good as in-person learning. I'm not comfortable with the limitations in my ability to connect with my students in the same way we were able to before the pandemic. I'm not comfortable with the fact that members of our community continue to behave recklessly as if this pandemic did not exist. I'm not comfortable with the mad rush to move our Zoom classes indoors without having assessed our ability to truly provide a safe environment. I'm not comfortable accepting that reaching a level of substantial virus spread in the community is the green light to bring students indoors. On the contrary, substantial is the red tier. Many other districts are targeting orange or even yellow as a trigger to move. I'm not comfortable playing a guessing game with students and community health. I'm not comfortable with assuming that our HVAC systems can deliver their designed value for air changes per hour. I'm not comfortable with accepting our system's designed value of 2 to 4 air changes per hour, as mentioned in the last meeting, when HVAC and medical experts recommend at least 6 changes per hour. What will make students, teachers, and families more comfortable is an understanding that classrooms are safe, is an understanding that HVAC engineers, experts have evaluated our systems and our classrooms. Understanding that all classrooms have the minimum level of recommended ventilation, including the approximately 35% of rooms with no windows or no mechanical ventilation at all. Students, teachers, and families will also feel more comfortable when they understand the financial resources needed for these measures will finally be provided by our local, state, and federal governments. The government provided $25 billion to bail out the shareholders of airlines, yet only provided $13.5 billion for schools. Why are the shareholders of airlines prioritized over the safety of our schools? What will also make families feel more comfortable is knowing that they can make informed decisions about the return to school. In addition to safety, families want to know that there's truly a benefit for bringing students indoors, that there will be enhanced educational opportunities and activities, that there will be socialization, collaboration, exciting projects, lab work. As I mentioned, I'm grateful that we have a collaborative process during which all stakeholders have thoroughly analyzed many potential phased learning models. Unfortunately, none of those models include any of the meaningful benefits I described above due to safety protocols. We will be essentially Zooming in class and dividing our attention between the silent students on laptops in the room and those at home on their devices. I'm disheartened by this fact, as it seems that we have learned what we already knew about our ability to bring students back at this time. As Dr. Skelly mentioned a few weeks ago, the climb in COVID cases makes that path steeper and probably longer. This is not a reason to give up on planning. On the contrary, we need to consider what steps we will take only when the time is appropriate. More importantly, it makes clear our responsibility to inform our families as thoroughly as possible about all the parameters of any phased-in learning model and the decisions with which they will be presented. As Dr. Skelly also often says, on we go. I will add to that we should go only with thoughtful, informed purpose and with thorough caution. Going slow to go fast is about developing nimbleness and not recklessness. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Report of the CSEA Chapter 519 Representative Ms. Velaz. Or is it Miss Merry Christmas?
You got that, huh? I'm so sorry. I thought I had changed it earlier.
It's okay.
Good evening, President Freeman, members of the board, Dr. Skelly, and everyone here tonight. CSEA Chapter 519 would like to congratulate Ligia Andrade Zuniga. We are very excited to work with you and welcome you to the San Mateo Union High School District Board of Trustees. We would also like to congratulate Greg Land on your second term. We look forward to continuing to work with you. Thank you, Mark Friedman, for the past 9.5 years of service and leadership representing the San Mateo Union High School District Board of Trustees. Liz McManus, I find you on my screen. You have been an extraordinary addition to the district for the past 14 years, and you will be greatly missed by classified staff. We congratulate you on your retirement and wish you well on your future endeavors. Even though you won't work with us day to day, we know you will be popping in every now and then. Our summer program. All righty, here we are. We are aware that the board has been given information about the Classified School Employee Summer Assistance Program. This financial assistance program for classified employees was established by the California State Legislature. The program exists to provide financial assistance to eligible classified employees who do not work summer months and earn under a specified salary cap determined by the state. This is the third year of the program, and $60 million has been set aside this year, which may be utilized by any public school district in California. The financial assistance is provided via salary matching. So if the district opts in to the program, employees who enroll may withhold up to 10% of their income throughout the school year, and then can be matched by the state funds dollar for dollar up to a maximum of $6,000 during the summer. This would come at a very nominal cost to the district. They would only be on the hook to pay the usual statutory payroll costs, such as FICA for individual employees. But other than that, there isn't any risk. It only benefits our members. If the program is overused statewide, then employees would just get less matching funds. Last year, the fund was only $36 million, and so many districts participated that employees ended up getting 60 cents for each dollar, but it's still free money. On November 9th, our labor rep, Mark Westerberg, sent a letter to Dr. Skelly requesting the district to participate in this program. Sadly, on November 13th, the superintendent rejected participation in this program and consequently has denied the opportunity for any employee to participate in the program. We met with Dr. Black at our monthly meeting on November 19th and requested he discuss this opportunity with Dr. Skelly. But to date, we have not received a response. Why wouldn't the district want to participate in the beneficial program to help our least paid employees in the district? Especially during these difficult times, employees would have to elect to set the money aside voluntarily, and it would be at a very nominal cost to the district. This is a very time-sensitive issue, and we would like your support to encourage the district to participate no later than the deadline of December 31st. Spring semester. As you know, classified are both on-site and working from home. We are missing the hustle and bustle, hearing the laughter and excitement from the students each day. As we near the beginning of spring semester and plans are being finalized to return in January, we hope that instead of a fixed date, it would be more aligned with our county's reopening plans, closer to the yellow area instead of the purple like we are now. Lastly, we just wrapped up our annual holiday gift card fundraiser. We are overjoyed to announce we will gift over 140 of our students with a $25 Target gift card. We know it may be small, but we hope this, along with every site and department's own giving efforts, this will bring a small comfort to our families in need. I can't thank classified staff, teachers, management, and administration who contributed to this effort. I am so proud of the district that I work for, that we had every staff member in each department site contribute something. It was amazing, just amazing. The cards will be handed out next week by classified staff. Transportation will be delivering them. So I'd like to thank you for your time tonight and happy holidays.
Thank you. Report of the San Mateo Adult School Teachers Association representative, Ms. Funk.
Thank you. Good evening, President Friedman, trustees, district leadership and staff, and student board members. I wanted to thank President Friedman for his years of service. I haven't been coming to these board meetings for that long, but it sounds like you've done a wonderful job over the years. And I did want to also thank the entire board, superintendent, and all the district staff for just the Herculean effort that everyone has made this year to keep teachers teaching, keep students learning. And it's really taken an effort at all levels of time, energy, and funding, and we appreciate it. I do want to echo Mr. Childress's comments about really moving forward with thorough caution in terms of reopening plans, and also encourage the district to consider the unique needs of the adult school, its buildings and staff, and unique student population in the safety plans for the district and for reopening. 2020 has been incredibly challenging, but the adult school has had a lot of success to report, and we're moving into 2021 with gusto. In November, we welcomed teacher Kimberly Hinkle for the launch of our pharmacy technician program. This is part of our career education program, which continues to thrive and grow. The pharmacy technician program will provide the necessary training for students to pass the pharmacy technician certification board exam and gain employment as pharmacy technicians in the Bay Area, which is a growing field. Our new hybrid clinical medical assistant training program is scheduled to begin January 4th. And we look forward to adding Juanita Price and Tracy Armour to our team of amazing adult school teachers. Also in our career education program, we graduated our latest industry certified class in professional communications for business and beyond, bringing our total industry certified graduates to 64. This is an important program for both native and non-native English speakers who want to learn the communication skills to compete in the workplace and grow professionally and personally. The course is offered via Zoom, and it's recommended for all students 18 years or older, and we're really proud of our graduates. We recently welcomed teacher Claudio Cazzi as the newest addition to our high school diploma GED team. The importance of that program is captured in the story of Flo Lopez, a 2016 graduate from our high school diploma program, who overcame many, many obstacles to finish her high school studies at the adult school. She has since gone on to college at the College of San Mateo, And she currently works as a supervisor at the Starbucks, actually right by the district office. So you can go by and wave to Flo. And her story is also posted on our social media site. And it's really a tribute to how hard some of these students have to work just to do what some of us, I think, have taken for granted. The Active Adults program continues to do phenomenal work, providing a demographic at risk for isolation and COVID complications with vital programs for mental and physical health via Zoom. And finally, our ESL program is expanding class offerings this spring. Our students have expressed their gratitude not just for the English lessons, but how improving their English skills mean having the skills they need to navigate the pandemic. Thank you for your time, and thank you again, President Friedman, for your service, and congratulations, Greg Land, on your nomination to the board. Re-election, that's the word.
Mr. Friedman, perhaps I could interrupt here. I think I understand that, Ms. Funk, that you are going to retire. Is that accurate?
Well, yes, I'll be continuing to teach, but I am leaving the district at the end of December.
Yeah. So we really appreciate your service. You've been a really eloquent spokesperson for the adult school. And when I've visited, I'm impressed with your care and love for your students, and you will be missed. So thank you for your service.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Funk. So we're moving on to item M1, Spring Semester Committee. Just Dr. Skelly, as you present, I already have, I guess it's closed now, 5 speakers. So you can have the speakers speak first if you wish, or you can present, then I'll go to the you take questions from the board, then I'll go to the speakers. I'll sort of allow you to do it however works best in your presentation.
I think we'd like to present first and then hear from the public and then hear from the board. Okay. So this is an item that we have had on the agenda for quite some time. The committee, the Spring Semester Planning Committee, has been hard at work, as have district administrators and principals. We realize that this is a challenging time to plan when things seem so dark, but plan we are. And so I'm going to turn this item over to Dr. Black and Dr. Kemke to go through here. Hopefully you'll see this as a follow-up on the discussion that we had on December 3rd. And then depending on what we hear from you, we'll be back on the 17th, or we'll hold off to another date to continue this work. So with that, I'm going to turn it over, I believe, to Dr. Kemke.
Thank you, Dr. Skelly. So we're going to go through an instructional model update. You heard a bit about this last week. Dr. Black will talk about a phase update, behavioral expectations for our in-person model, some of the communication to follow up from what we heard last week from our student board members, and then Mr. Simmons is going to talk about addressing learning loss, coming back with some of the suggestions from the board last meeting. So just a slight update from what we shared at the last meeting. The teacher subcommittee had the opportunity to meet, and they came to a conclusion that having an AABB concurrent streaming block schedule, it's slightly, the slight difference is that we've talked about an AB. This just means that students will come to campus 2 days in a row. Block periods alternate, odd, even days. The lunch is staggered, so I'm going to share with you a mock-up of a bell schedule so you can see what that looks like. And then, you know, what we heard from the teachers is that it's easier for families. Students are coming to class Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, or potentially Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So they're coming 2 days in a row. And what we're seeing right now is that ABC, like 3 cohorts, is most likely not needed if we have less than 40% of the families wanting to return. And that helps with a staggered lunch, and you know it's more confusing when you have those 3 cohorts. So here's one mock-up of a potential bell schedule that our teacher subcommittee had taken a look at. You'll see that Wednesday is the 5th day So there's still some discussions about what that day will look like. But you'll see how the day flows, the staggered lunch. Some of the discussion that the teachers did have was keeping consistency in the length of the period. So you'll see that they're about 75 minutes still. And it's also modeled after SI, and they were taking a look at that schedule. Here's another mock-up of it, and this is with Monday is the potential 5th day, so to speak. The other piece that's under discussion is how long passing periods, and I know there's still discussion to be made around whether or not it's 10 or 15 minutes. The concern with the 15 minutes or having a longer passing period is to allow students to move across some of our larger campuses, but it also pushes lunch back, so that's a concern. This is some of the initial thoughts around that Monday versus Wednesday. We're going to have a more thorough conversation with the teacher subcommittee as well as principals around why to have one, Monday versus Wednesday as that 5th day. So you'll see some of the reasons there on why we could do one of those days or not. Other considerations that we're starting to talk about are specific CTE classes, foods, band, choir. You can't quite do some of those things in person just because of the nature of those classes. You can't play an instrument, you can't sing. And so we have some additional considerations there. There's a lot of discussion around the support period, whether or not that should be Zoom, is it in person? We heard from the students around it's difficult to get support when we've been Zooming all day. So we're talking more about that. And then there are some lunch period logistics that we're still working out, but that's just a general update around what these schedules could look like. And we do anticipate that kind of the district level work is getting to the point where we're going to hand it off to the schools to start thinking about what it's going to look like, based on their specific school layout and all of those types of things. And I think I'm passing it over to Dr. Black to these next slides.
Thank you. Slide 8 is the reopening process, and that is tied to the state color-coded tier system, with purple being the 4th tier most restrictive and the one that San Mateo County is currently in. So while in purple, schools not already operating on-campus instruction cannot initiate such a program. In order for San Mateo Union High School District to reopen for in-person instruction, the county must be in red tier, the 3rd tier, for 14 consecutive days. Also required is the County Office of Ed approval of our school reopening plan, with the main focus being safety and incorporating COVID-19 prevention and response procedures. And additionally, changes in working conditions are negotiated with our associations. Slide 9. Cal-OSHA finalized their employer COVID-19 prevention and response regulations recently. The effective date was November 30th. However, almost all of the requirements in the regulations were already in the district's previous reopening plan and have really become part of our routine practices. We communicate COVID-19 issues personally to employees who may have been infected or in contact with a positive case, and we follow up that communication to all the employees at the site or in the department detailing the occurrence with appropriate confidentiality, and then we provide testing to employees. In terms of COVID-19 hazards, we follow all the guidelines of Cal-OSHA and other agencies in terms of screening, temperature taking, PPE, distancing, signage, restricting visitors and gatherings, air filtering, etc. We respond rapidly to COVID-19 cases through managers, HR, and our student health coordinator, Sarah Devaney, who has done a remarkable job getting in immediate contact with our county health office and liaison whenever there is a positive case, and then they've been great giving us guidance. Slide 10. So these are the tentative phase dates. Now, we have identified 3 phases for bringing instruction back on campus. They are contingent on the county being out of purple tier for 14 days. Phase 1 would begin with 6 specialized programs to be the first ones back on our campuses. And the definition of these specialized programs are linked on the slide. The earliest date for these programs to be back on campus would be January 19th, considering everything worked out with the color-coded tier program. Also in phase one, the plan is to have our teachers back on campus and initiating the interactive process for staff who may not be able to return to campuses. Phase two would be approximately 2 weeks later, and that would open Peninsula High School, the Bridge Newcomer Program, and Middle College to on-campus instruction, along with expanding options for enrichment, orientation, student activity, clubs, advisories, homework center, tutoring in that phase. Now, the earliest date for that would be February 2nd, and that would move then to phase three, which would be for all students who opt in for a hybrid on-campus program following the bell schedule that was just shared earlier. And the earliest date for this phase would be February 16th. Slide 11. Student Services and Director Don Scatena has created our Student Behavior Expectations and Responses Matrix for COVID-19 prevention and practices. This matrix is based upon what Napa Unified is currently using as they have their students back in a hybrid model. We've had several subcommittees of staff, parents, and students look at the matrix and give us feedback. It's a couple, 2 or 3 pages long, and it's linked to the slide. And the key points would be that we're practicing progressive consequences and focusing on a restorative approach for students, while letting violators know that they're impacting the safety of the community in general and on-campus instruction specifically. We intend to be very diligent in our observance of students and require, be steadfast in our requirements for them to adhere to the safety protocols. The expectations range from, responses range from warnings to 100% placement and district learning and distance learning for students that just fail to correspond to the behavioral matrix. Sites will review the matrix with students and staff prior to opening schools and then regularly promote these expectations on an ongoing basis to students. Students themselves will be able to report incidents to using our anonymous alert system, as there will be a choice labeled COVID safety policy violation, and this will permit administrators and staff to follow up with the students who may have been violating the policy. Slide 12. Communications. Communication with students moving forward will be through Canvas for the most part for surveys and other important topics. This is in response to, as Dr. Kempke said, our student board members and other students who have shared that they are more likely to notice communication through Canvas rather than email. We have a variety of ways to communicate with formal leadership groups on our campuses. And one way that we're beginning to do that is through the leadership Instagram accounts. And then also as a result of feedback from students in the future, when we send out surveys and important information to families, we will also send these out to students' district email accounts. Slide 13, and I'll pass it over to Mr. Simmons.
Good evening, board members. And I too want to say a quick word of thanks to President Friedman for your energetic and equity-minded service to the board over the years, in my 5 years here. Thank you. This is a revision to what we indicated at our last meeting. I won't go into the details necessarily since we talked mostly about that last time, but just to say that we have increased the FTE allocation for evening classes by adding a third session, added a third 12-day session for essentially cleaning up credit deficiencies in summer school. And we would also like to expand our current work experience program modeled on the program that we have in biotechnology. And as indicated on the bottom of this slide, we'll be initiating next week a survey for our regular summer school staff to get a sense of their intent for the summer, assuming that we plan to have an in-person summer school offering if all goes as hoped with the return to school this spring. Secondly, we have added a bit more information about the fall of 2021, and 2 key ideas have been identified. One is a common assessment for target intervention and support for academic kind of restoration in our core subjects. and a need to figure out a system-wide support period or relationship sort of development for students across the district at all schools. That's been another emergent idea that's come out of kind of social emotional students for this during this time. Next slide, please. And then this last slide obviously reflects some of the increased costs associated with the investments that were just described. You can see the difference between what was proposed last week and what is proposed this week. Please let me know if you have questions about those as they occur to you.
Do you have anything else to add, Dr. Skelly?
No, that's it.
Just anyone, before we go to the speakers, any board member have any clarifying questions? I have one, so I'll ask it. So this is for you, Dr. Black. So if I understand the calendar, basically what you're saying is we go to phase 1 14 days after we leave purple and go into red. Is that correct?
Right, 14 consecutive days.
Yeah,
with count.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Also with county approval of our reopening plan, which we hope to present to you next week.
Which that, if I understand that right, since it's 28 days from phase 1 to phase 3, it means we wouldn't have teachers back we wouldn't have students back in the classroom across all our high schools till 35 days after we left purple.
Right. At the soonest, February 16th. That's correct.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're assuming we leave. That assumes we leave purple January 2nd. Yeah.
Okay. Second. Yeah.
Yeah, or whatever it was. Yeah. I'm just trying to back number. But if we left my question is, so on that schedule, it takes 35 days from leaving purple to bringing students back in the classroom. Bringing the majority, not the specialized programs, but the everyday programs back in the classroom.
Right. That would be the beginning. That would be beginning of the second report period of 6 weeks.
Phase 3. We don't get to phase
3. Yes.
We don't get to phase 3 till 35 days after leaving purple. That's what I'm asking. I got it. Okay.
36.
Anyone else have a question? Okay, we'll take our public comments. I have 5 public comments, and I'm just going to go the order I have them. They were presented to me. Ariane Adamjakova.
Hello. Good evening, members of the board and public. My name is Ariane Adamjakova, and I am a Spanish teacher at Capuchino High School. I will be reading a statement written by my colleague and friend, Sally Schurter, a Spanish teacher at Burlingame High School, who is unable to speak tonight. These are her words. I mean, enough already, right? Open up all the schools, get back to campus, back to normal life. We are all tired, burnt out, ready to get on with life. Let's cut to the chase and resume normalcy. However, normal for me is something very different because today marks 101 days after testing positive. The majority of people don't realize that there are varying degrees of COVID. There is the kind that lands you on a ventilator, or for some leads to an early death. Some are asymptomatic, others mild, and then there is long COVID, a form of COVID whose scope the doctors don't yet understand, but its effects are debilitating at best and can last months upon months on end. According to the CDC, 10% of those who test positive with COVID-19 will contract long COVID. I am one of the 10%, and I would never wish this experience upon anyone. This is the second time I have had COVID-19 in 2020. Despite gloves, masks, hand sanitizer, social distancing, etc., I got the virus again. Contrary to popular belief, once someone gets the COVID-19, they are not immune. I was hopeful that this second time would be a lighter case. When I tested positive, I was asymptomatic. The day I received my results, the nurse assured me that it would probably be very mild since I had already had COVID. In reality, it has been worse than the first time. And over 3 months sick with COVID means that for over 3 months, I have not been able to teach my students. My students finally had to go into independent studies because it was impossible to find a long-term Spanish-speaking sub. Is this what we want to subject our students and teachers to? Is this what we want to introduce to vulnerable families? not to mention the burden on administration and the logistics of contact tracing and quarantines. COVID-19 is real because you have not met someone who had it, then this message is for you. I was extremely healthy and active prior to contracting this virus, and I can't tell you how many times I have seen my life flash before my eyes in the last 9 months. We have a choice. There are options. Please do not place students, their families, and teachers in such a precarious and vulnerable position. I implore you, please take a moment to make the wise decision that will be better all around for everyone in the long run, that will not risk lives or place people's health and well-being at risk. Thank you, Sally Schurter.
Thank you. Next, Elizabeth Cronin. 3 minutes from the time you start speaking.
All right, thank you for hearing me speak tonight. My name is Cte Cronin, and I teach ELD at San Mateo High School. I wrote to you last week to let you know what a phenomenal job the district has done in giving district educators the equipment, training, and support we've needed to teach successfully via Zoom. You've even paid us to attend numerous trainings. Through district subscriptions, we have access to Nearpod, Pear Deck, Flipgrid, Edpuzzle, ClassKit, Quizlet, Quizzes, JamPro, Padlet, Turnitin.com, Canvas, quizzes, rubrics, discussions, media files, SpeedGrader, and Screencastify. Learning each tech tool requires days of experimentation, watching how-to videos on YouTube, reading online forums, emailing the platform with question, and trial and error. Your teachers have embraced this challenge because we are committed to excellence, whether on campus or on Zoom. I hope you've been to some of the Zoom classes to see how creative and engaging our lessons are. The learning curve has been steep for all. It has also been very, very time consuming, and planning lessons is only one fraction of our job. We also teach and assess, we differentiate, we reach out to parents, guardians, and students. We communicate with counselors, administrators. We request and attend SSTs. We refer to wellness, the health van, the peace pantry, and after-school tutoring. We work with students after school in various capacities. We collaborate with colleagues. We spearhead committees and go to umpteen Zoom meetings and PD sessions. And there's always more to do. Teachers are sitting at their desks at home from early morning until late at night. We are psychologically at school all the time. In fact, we've been psychologically on the clock since last summer when it became clear that we would be teaching online. At our staff meeting last week, teachers piled on in response to one teacher's comment in the chat. He had written, schoolwork, eat, sleep, that's all there is. Teachers furiously wrote concurring comments as other colleagues spoke up in tears about the stress they are feeling. So I would really like to ask, why exactly do you want teachers back on campus in January, even if students are not there? Why would you ask us to increase our risk without any cause? Why would you ask teachers to spend hours each day driving to and from school, or to spend time breaking down, setting up, and sanitizing workstations that we share at San Mateo High School? Why do you think any of this will help us serve our students better? The teachers who need to work on campus already do, and I cannot fathom why you would do anything to your teachers' already unimaginable workloads.
Thank you. Next, Miss Karen Field.
My name is Karen Field, and I teach math and newcomer EL students at San Mateo High School, and this year EL advisory at Hillsdale. I wanted to address two requirements in the return to school plan. The first is that teachers be on campus starting January 19th, whether students return or not. And the second is that students return as soon as possible in the red tier. This semester, teachers have changed their entire teaching strategies, learned new technologies, revamped every single lesson to be successful in distance learning, often spending up to 3 hours to create just one lesson, met one-on-one with students, called families, supported students and their families with COVID-19 testing, mental health services, peace pantries, rental and legal assistance referrals, and delivered food to students' families sick with COVID. Teachers are working more than they have ever. At our last staff meeting, many teachers expressed that they only work, eat, and sleep. There is no time for anything else. And you want to require them to spend additional time traveling to an empty campus without students, putting vulnerable family members at risk. While even hours ago, we were notified of even more students in pods and staff at various sites that have tested positive. Students are learning. Distance learning is successful. No, it is not the same as in person, but we are in a pandemic, and it is not yet possible to return to school as we knew it. Yes, we have students who are struggling and they need more support. Let's give them that support by focusing our efforts on creative solutions rather than spending our time and energy on a return to school plan while it is still unsafe to do so. Today, San Mateo County is in the purple tier, and we are reaching 300 new cases per day. ICU beds are filling up and local hospitals are at capacity. Students and their families are currently suffering from COVID. Half of the state and most of the Bay Area is in a stay-at-home lockdown. Administrators have asked teachers not to come to campus unless it is absolutely essential. Pods have been disbanded for the last 2 weeks before finals. Our district has taken these steps and these measures to keep our students, staff, and families safe. Unless you personally have been affected by COVID, unless you have students calling you, begging for help because their mom is in the hospital, dad is homesick, their aunt died yesterday, and they're trying desperately to keep their family safe. You don't understand what risk is and what even low risk means for our students and families. Thank you.
Next is Jenny Coffey.
Good evening. Hi. My name is Jenny Coy. I've been teaching in the district for 18 years, and I currently teach Spanish, and I'm a senior advisor at Hillsdale High School. I come to you filled with pride in our district for coming together to offer some of the best distance learning available. I'd like to thank the district for offering opportunities for professional development over the summer. I'm thrilled that we chose to implement synchronous distance learning so that we could engage students in real time and give them the opportunity to interact with one another, unlike in the spring. I'm grateful for all of the online learning tools that my colleagues have referred to so that I could have more interactive lessons. For example, Pear Deck, it's a tool that lets me change slide decks like a PowerPoint that's teacher-centered into an interactive learning experience. I'm thrilled with our wellness counselors who create inviting spaces for students to learn coping skills and train staff in social emotional learning during this difficult time. I'm grateful for my colleagues across the district who have shared curriculum, answered tech questions, and listened to my struggles. I would like to thank Hillsdale Principal Jeff Gilbert for thoughtfully pushing teachers to do better while trusting us to make good choices for our students. I would like to thank Brett Stevenson for tirelessly running the Peace Pantry that provides groceries for 130 of our most needy Hillsdale families every week. I'm also proud of myself. I have learned how to use numerous new tech tools and features. I've modified my curriculum to make it relevant to students living through a pandemic and address the social emotional needs of my students. For example, an earlier speaker, Arian Adamchikova, and I created a unit on teens coping with living through a pandemic. Given that we need to start the semester online next semester, and the hybrid plan is basically distance learning with some students in the room, we need to continue to improve our distance learning. Here is a list of ways to make distance learning better. Better devices for students. Chromebooks are limited. More support, move the support period to the middle of the day so it doesn't seem optional for students. Noise canceling headsets for students living in noisy environments. This might be controversial, but I think we should have more synchronous minutes. This year, classes at Hillsdale, every one of them, 55 fewer instructional minutes every week. Lobby for the county to provide more rent, food, utility, and health care assistance. If students do not have their basic needs met, they cannot effectively learn. Free, high-quality Wi-Fi for students. More instructional aids to work with students one-on-one, perhaps our sub-pool. Peer tutoring, staff to make distanced home visits, safe distanced home visits for struggling students to see what's going on. Keep our professional coordinator, Sabby Hopkins, on staff. She's doing an amazing job. Thank you for your time. Good evening.
Thank you. And last is Edwin Contreras.
Good evening, members of the board and the general public and administration. My name is Edwin Contreras, and I am a math, science, and ELD teacher at Hillsdale High School. To be honest, and this is from the bottom of my heart, I really should not be here tonight. I had a really, really long day, like all of us teachers, trying to help our students pass their classes, pass the last benchmarks, the last week before final exams next week. To be honest, I should be at home resting. I should be catching up on my sleep. I should be lesson planning for tomorrow. But here I am, and I find myself here, something that really I wish I didn't have to do. And the reason I'm here is basically because I feel a moral obligation, a moral duty, and also a duty to my own conscience to speak up the truth, and maybe a truth that you might not be aware about. To let you know, the reality is the following. I know that many of you have been teachers in the past. Many of you maybe have been teachers a long time ago. But I want to tell you something that maybe we forget. We don't really know how it is, how something is until we really experience it. As an example, my name is Edwin Contreras. I am an immigrant. And you can read everything about immigrant experiences. You can watch movies. You can do anything you want about literature. But you never truly know what it feels to be an immigrant unless you really experience it in your own flesh. I'm also a person of color. And the same thing applies. You will never truly know what it is unless you're a person of color. And the same thing is currently being a high school distance learning teacher in this setting. To be honest, I'm overworked, I'm tired, but I'm doing this because I know this is a once in a lifetime event, once in a pandemic. And so I say, like previous generations, I'll do my best. And here I am. Now looking at the plan, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I need to speak because in the past I have felt as a teacher, not just undervalued, but also that I felt that my comments and my concerns have been irrelevant. And why is this? Because there is an enormous blindness coming from many angles of the administration, the public, and also you, the board members. Because of this enormous desire for some sort of normalcy to not really look at things from through proper angles. And by this, I mean the following. We are doing so much. I can do so much, and I take it and I do it. However, by us going back in person, you are not only asking us to continue this level of work, but you're also asking us a third thing, which is to manage the virus in our classrooms. Having 15 to 19 students in the classroom, not only I have to do all of the things that I'm doing, but in addition, I have to keep an eye on the computer, off the computer, off the computer, on the computer constantly. I had to be basically paranoid about everything. I had to worry about going to the bathroom. I had to worry about how much water I drink because I don't want to go to the bathroom a lot of times. Before COVID, every time I went to the bathroom, we only have one bathroom in our building. There were 4 or 5 teachers. I had to wait. I had to be mindful of that. Second, I see my students. I have a learning path for our ELD students, and I see that one of the biggest concerns that we have right now is that the number of COVID cases is rising among high school students, just as much as college students. And when I see my students, I see them living, and they're actually living together. They're taking the bus, they're going places, and we have no control. I know that my colleagues, and I trust them, that we can do the best that we can if we can manage, but there is a lot of stuff that happens between the house and the classroom. So I please ask you to, and I never imagined this before, that a board has the power over life and death. I beg you to please err on the side of life. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess we're on to board comments. We have a recommendation from the district staff. They presented a plan. It's up to the board to provide feedback on that plan. Is that what you would like, Dr. Skelly? Yes. So, Mr. Land, you get to go first.
Okay. First of all, thanks for the speakers to talk. I really appreciate what they had to say. I think, you know, when you talk about the distance learning and the improvement and what's going on in the tools, it's really heartwarming to know that we've really done a good job in that, and I hope we can continue to do so. I like the suggestions. In looking at Ms. Kempke, Dr. Kempke, thank you so much for the presentation about the AABB. My suggestion would be just, I'm glad we're continuing with this plan, and let's move forward with how it would be initiated. I would say the extra day, the 5th day, wherever it's going to be, I would recommend Wednesday, just being practical of having it in the middle of the week so that it could be support oriented. I think that would be good. I also think listening to both of the student representatives, that be an asynchronous day with exception. I think that's something that the students would like to see, to be able to catch up with their work and be able to do the work that they need to do. So that would be my one recommendation. I'm going to just take a very personal take right now. While the last speaker was talking, I got a text that one of my teachers is positive with COVID, and we are in class. So for those who don't know, I'm a principal in the Los Altos School District. I am an elementary district. We are actually back in class. We have precautions. We've done a lot of the operational work that I've heard over the last few weeks. And I say, you know, I think right now, what's really important is I'm not worried about the time schedule, like when to come back, but to be prepared to come back. I think having these schedules set up, having these phases put in place, or at least having this is what it's going to look like, having a real practical idea of what it's going to be, is going to make a difference. Have I been affected by this? Yes. I worry about my teachers every day. I worry about my students every day. But you know what? We have a lot of practical things in place, and for weeks and weeks and weeks now, we've been in school since September, and this is the first cases that I'm starting to hear. So again, I hear what everybody's saying. This is a difficult time. Things are changing, but that doesn't mean we don't need to be prepared. I think my advice here is that we prepare properly. I even want to go back to what Mr. Childress said. You know, what is it going to look like in the classrooms? I mean, we really need to think this through. I think each site needs to have an idea of what it's going to look like when we do return, whenever that is. Obviously, Dr. Black, you did talk about what the county's doing and what the state's doing, and we're in purple when we go into red. I think I'm not worried about exactly what time we're going to come back, but I'm worried about when we come back, are we prepared? And I want to have it practical, like this is the way it's going to be from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3. I think the only counter that I'll say to teachers is I would like to find some practical reasons to bring back teachers, you know, for enrichment, for other activities, for collaboration, for getting them prepared to what is going to happen when we do return. I think we have to acknowledge that this is not going to go away. This is going to be an ongoing situation that is not going to be solved with the vaccinations really quickly and it's all done and we're back to normalcy. This could be years and years of, it's going to be a hybrid model and it's going to change and we're going to do phase 10, phase 15, but we have to be prepared. And I really want, you know, I want us to remember that safety is the most important thing for all of us, all the protocols. And I do think those protocols will make a difference. I think if we do have everything in place, we will protect our teachers and our students. And I'm hoping that we just do it in a very practical way. I think everybody's getting hung up on the when. I'm not worried about the when, I'm worried about the how. How are we going to make this happen? So I just want everybody in their heads to get it right. Like, okay, this is what it's going to look like when we get there. And I think that's what's important over everything else. And we have to remember, we do want to have our kids come back. We know that no matter how wonderful the distance learning is, it's a poor substitute for having live instruction. So keeping that in mind, but keeping safety, it's keeping that balance. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, Ms. Lee-Stroyer.
Okay. Thank you for the report. Thank you for the updates. I'm glad to see that we're putting more money into the summer programs, because the more this goes on, the more important the summer programs are going to become. And I think at this point in time, given where we are, we really should be looking at offering a year-round situation for as many students as possible, year-round school, so that they can make up for the time that they're losing and the coursework that they're not able to complete. So I think that, we may be as we get into spring, be looking more at expanding summer school. This is very complicated. Students need to be in school, and a big part of it, of course, is instruction, but the rest of it is just the socialization, the learning, the ongoing interaction with other students, the being there, that is so good for everyone, including the teachers. And I hear the students talk about the asynchronous days, because I can't imagine being on Zoom as long as they are. These meetings for us are very long, and of course there's no break, but I really believe that we should look at some asynchronous time so that students can take a breath and step back and have a little opportunity to try to catch it up a bit and to get away. The other thing that really struck me tonight is listening to the teachers, because you think about the classroom and how a teacher comes to school and they're prepared and they teach their courses and then they go home. But the way teachers are living and working now is so different, because I listen to Mr. Contreras and I hear in his voice and in the others the commitment, I've got to keep doing this, I've got to get this done, I owe this to my students, I want this for my kids. And I sense that there are a lot of very tired teachers. So, and I don't see that ending until this pandemic ends. So as teachers begin to come back, my concern with our plan and with just everyone returning to school is, how do we lessen the fatigue rather than increase it? Because if you're going to add coming to school to everything else that you're trying to do, and then you need to go home, and then you've got the stressors at school, and I know that's being organized to be minimal as possible, but there's going to be an adjustment period no matter what. But then they've got to drive home again, and then what? Are they going to be able to complete everything at school and then go home and not work? That would be lovely, but I'm not sure how that's going to work given the amount of work that it takes to do the synchronous teaching. So I am very concerned about teacher fatigue and student fatigue and how we're going to handle that. I agree with, I think, Mr. Land on it's the how, not the when, because the when will happen. We have absolutely no control about that. What we can try to control as much as possible is the how. I would hope that we continue to look at how we can reduce the fatigue in everyone involved and do what we can to provide the best instruction possible without just wearing out the teachers and the students, and not offering enough opportunities for them to catch a breath and really appreciate what else there is in their lives. So thank you.
Thanks. Peter, Mr. Hanley.
Thanks. I don't have a whole lot of comments. We've been over this a few times now. I do agree with Greg on the. I would make the kind of off day a Wednesday rather than a Monday. I think that's a better approach. And maybe part of the day is an asynchronous day. I would be cautious. I would be cautious about making the whole day asynchronous because I think there is a loss. We've already lost instructional minutes. I don't know. We may think about, do you want to do, one or two a month that's asynchronous. I don't know. I kind of leave that to the administration to consider that, whether that's worth considering or not. um, you know, I toss that out, and whether that's worth considering, whether part of the day could be asynchronous, or whether you want to do you know, one a month or two a month. That might be worth considering. You know, credit the learning loss. The idea of the evening classes. I'm wondering if it's, you know, worth looking at whether you could break up the day a little bit with the evening classes, if that's, you know, if that's an option as we go further into the spring. If you could start, you know, if going 9 to 3 is a real difficult trek, and you know, would it be worthwhile trying to move some of the classes to the evening, so that you go, you know, you don't go 9 to 3, you have some options to take evening classes. You know, is that a way to approach it, so that you're not continuously on, and you can break up the day into having evening classes? The other thing that strikes me is, even though it may be technically necessary, there may be a need for expanded summer school this summer. I think it's going to be tough. I think people are pretty worn down, and I don't know how successful we're going to be at really jumping on immediately restoring the learning gaps. I don't know that we're going to immediately do that. I think we need to think about the schedule for next year. I'm not optimistic that we're going to get back very soon at all in out of purple, and I certainly don't think we're going to get out of purple January 2nd. You know, I'm much more optimistic that by next fall we're going to have an opportunity to have a much more normalized school year. I'm reasonably optimistic that by next fall we will. And could we be more creative? I like the idea of common assessments. I've talked about that even before the pandemic, that we needed to restore common assessments in the district. But I think going to a year-round schedule, and I mentioned this before, I think the summer of 2022 should be a much shortened summer, and we should be looking at trying to change the school year for next year that really allows us to do some more intensive recovery of learning, and, you know, really plans to shorten the summer for the following summer that allows us to start to recover some of these learning losses. That doesn't mean that we don't try to recover some learning losses in this coming summer, but you mentioned in there that you'll start recruiting early for summer school teachers, and there's a concern about staffing. I think that's a legitimate concern, but I think it's also a legitimate concern about fatigue, and fatigue on both parts, fatigue about students, fatigue about staffing. And this pandemic is just worn people down. And I don't know how well people are going to learn in the summer, in this summertime, after 6 more months of what's going to be a very difficult, I think we're going to have a very difficult time in the next 4 months at least. I think it's going to be a very difficult time. This is the worst health crisis this country has had probably in its history, certainly going back to 1918. I think people are going to be in bad shape, mentally, physically, coming out of this. And I don't know how well we're going to actually be ready to hunker down and start learning at an increased pace in the summer. So I think we need to be thinking that we need to approach the school year for 21-22 in a different way that allows us to more intensely start to recover some of the learning loss in that school year, and particularly looking at the summer of 22 as a way of recovering learning loss and shortening that summer. But I think we need to be creative, and we need to be thinking about doing things differently, and not just thinking in a straight line, because we're looking at a completely different environment than any of us have ever faced. So those are my comments.
Mr. Griffin.
You know, I agree. I think Peter had some really good observations. I want to thank the speakers, particularly the teachers. They had some good observations. I think the plan has made progress. We keep drilling down and refining. All these apps and add-ons, it must really be a challenge. I know every day I get something that adds on to my Adobe Reader so I can do something else, and I'm getting farther behind, not catching up. I think in terms of the plan, I think that break day, whether it's a Monday or a Wednesday, is really going to be important. You know, and I don't know if we need to have uniformity for the whole district, or if we could afford the luxury of having sites kind of figure out what they might think. I also think we need to look at the breaks, and we need to figure out how much time we actually sit in a classroom in front of a camera, and if we can't just start stopping, take a 5-minute stand-up break, or do something, whatever mindfulness people do online, because it is just so intense that people, you know, you get fatigued right in the middle of it. You know, like when you're in that long deal, well, you know, okay, everybody stand up, shake your fingers, you know, wiggle your toes, whatever they're supposed to be doing, to try to get people through each class, and not just make it a sort of a death match. Did it by the end, everybody is just totally beat up. Let's see. I think we need to look at, and kind of, if there's an area we need to really drill down more on, I think Greg had already stated this, it's the return to school. And I think, like everything else, there's a lot more to having to come back and having to figure out all the stuff we need to get done so that we're ready. And, you know, and I think Greg, you know, started the conversation about, this is about preparation and being ready, having a plan, because I think we'd be negligent if we didn't have a plan, because then we would just be compounding an already untenable position. So it's not about the when, it's about the how because I don't know that we control the wind so much. But anyway, those are comments. So thank you.
For a comment, I'm going to ask the student board members. There's only one. Oh, no, they're both here. Did either of you want to comment?
Yeah, I can start. So first of all, I'd like to agree with Greg about not really focusing so much on the when we go back, because anything could really change. Like, we've seen such a spike in cases within like the past week that we couldn't have even imagined. So I definitely think that when planning, we should definitely focus on the how more. Just because I think a lot of students right now don't fully feel comfortable with going back. So I think that if we create a better safety plan around going back and getting as many students as we can back, that would be good. And I wanted to bring up Sarah High School because I've noticed Sarah High School has been going back since I think maybe mid-November, early November, and they have been going back great. And they have gone back at like groups. So first it was the seniors, and then it just keeps going down. And recently I saw that they're now allowing freshmen back on campus. They definitely are limiting the number of students on campus and just how instruction is happening. So I think if our district needs help, this definitely takes all hands on deck. So I think that reaching out to any district that can help is it's a great idea, especially if we already have people in our community that are close and that have already dealt with this, that we could also use the help that we need. I also wanted to talk about the teachers. Listening to the teachers today really hit. So I think that we need to also look at what the teachers are going through. We always talk about what the students are going through, but I think that we also should talk to the teachers and understand the resources that they need and understand how hard that all of this technology has for them, just learning everything. And personally in my classes, I've used only a few of those new things that one of the teachers had mentioned. And it took my teacher a few weeks to just learn how to use them. So I think that we definitely have to check in on everybody because, again, this does take a team effort. Yeah, just also pushing for the same resources for just everybody, and just checking in on everybody and making sure that everybody is okay and mentally healthy during this whole process. Thank you.
So based off of what Ms. Kemke and Dr. Black shared about the proposed schedule for next semester, I definitely do agree with Mr. Land about making that the Wednesday. And also I wanted to talk about something that Mr. Griffin brought up about the having breaks between classes. I only have one teacher personally who actually does that, but I definitely agree that whenever she does those, I definitely feel a little bit more energized throughout the class itself. So I think that would be a good idea to possibly tell teachers to do those more if we do end up online. I also wanted to thank some of the board members who brought up asynchronous Wednesdays in their discussion points. And also, yeah, I definitely agree with Jesse about looking at other districts and seeing how they're doing it. Obviously, they have some class sizes that we do at our schools across the district, so that's also something to take into consideration. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll just speak my comments. First of all, I think it sounds like we have a pretty decent back to school plan. And just to comment, I mean, Dr. Kemke didn't go over this time, it's based upon what the committee learned, is my understanding, it's based upon what the committee learned from other schools and school districts and what's been successful with them. And I see Dr. Kemke shaking her head. So, we didn't develop this on our own. We looked at different school districts and different schools to feel it's successful. So, I think the plan is there. The big issue is when it will happen, and as Linda and Bob said, we really have no control over that. Well, as long as the case count is where it is in purple, it's not going to kick in. But, as we saw in the fall when we were in purple and August, September, it dropped precipitously. I don't know why. I don't pretend to have the scientific knowledge to know why it dropped by 75%. And it might not drop for months, and it might drop in 30 days by that amount. I don't know. I'm just saying we don't know. We don't have control. But the point is, this time we have a plan. When it does drop, we can bring kids back on campus, and we're not rushing on campus. It's a 3-phase thing that starts bringing them on, that really doesn't fully phase in till 35 days after the numbers have dropped to a lower level. And we just don't have the control over that. But when it happens, I'm glad that we're ready to go. And I hope, the board would agree that, tell the administration that we're ready to go whenever the numbers or the state says we can be bringing kids back on campus. And as you might be aware, some of you might not be aware, some state legislatures are passing a law. Right now it's like when it gets to a certain level, we can bring kids on campus. There's a law being proposed in the state to change that can to have to. Okay, so the legislature is saying when we get to that number, we have to start doing these things. So I think it's great we have a plan. I don't disagree. Our teachers have worked really hard to make distance learning really great. They've put in extra hours and extra efforts. I don't disagree with that. I see that all the time. I see that effort. But we have to look at our statistics and the data. And the last data we got on the grading is very clear. Out of our roughly 9,000 students, we have over 1,000 students who aren't engaged, failing the majority of their classes. We have, it seems, you make some assumptions, we have another 2,000 students who are failing some in classes. They are engaged, but distance learning just doesn't reach them. I'm not saying that's the teacher's fault. I'm just saying it just doesn't work. So what do we have? We have a learning loss of at least 3,000 students. So for 1,000 of our students, distance learning isn't working. On the other hand, 6,000 of our students are passing all their classes. Hopefully they're learning something, maybe not as much as they would learn in person, but they're passing all their classes. They're being engaged in distance learning and they're ready to move forward. What does that mean? Is the glass 2/3 full or 1/3 empty? It's the conundrum we're going to face as we go forward. What do we do about that 1/3 empty? And I think as been proposed, we have to have, as Peter sort of talked about, different options. We're going to need, we're not dealing usually in the summer after a school year's ended with 3,000 students who are behind. That's a large number. And we're going to have lots of programs. I don't know what the right programs are. I don't know that we can make it all work this summer, but we should keep planning and trying to make it work this summer till we determine, no, it can't work. We can't staff it, or we can't find third-party online staffing to do it. Because let's be honest, some of these 3,000 kids are seniors and juniors. If we push them off till 2022, they won't graduate on time. And that's just, to me, that's, unacceptable, because we also know from our data that most of these kids are kids from less resourced households. There are students of color and so forth. So when we see that, that's where those 3,000 students are. And so, we have to keep planning and trying. We know what distance learning is going to do, and we know what it's going to leave 1/3 of our students behind to some degree, some more than others. And we have to keep planning and trying to figure out as we work through the pandemic. And I don't know what the numbers are going to be, but I do feel comfortable saying that with the vaccines that are being approved, they will get better. you know, we are probably in the, whatever the word is, the height or the trough. You know, as people get vaccinated, it only makes mathematical sense that it gets somewhat better. And then hopefully we can do something and bring, you know, have recovery, bring students back, because the numbers get to a certain level sometime in the spring semester. We have the plan. We develop a plan when they're even better in the summer to hopefully do some more credit recovery. And then hopefully in August, where they're even better, or, you know, the scientists are saying, you know, it will virtually be gone by the summer, but there'll still be COVID around. You'll still have to take precautions, but you know, it won't be spreading like a pandemic. That we bring kids back to school for normal then, and we do something. We look at how we can make up for those a portion of those 3,000 kids who didn't get the education that we hoped they would get this school year. So that's my comments. Yes, Dr. Skelly.
So maybe I could just try to provide a little bit of answers and then ask for some guidance from the board. The first is, I think in terms of that Monday and Wednesday, Ms. Kemke and I and the committee have done, you know, the committee's looked at this a lot, and there are, as you would guess, differing views on which day is better. I think the important thing is that we've got a committee, let's empower them, have them continue to do this work, and I think they'll land at a place. We'll probably have to make a call. We need to be consistent between the schools, because we got teachers who were mentioned here who are teaching at both schools, and so you need to have some consistency, but we'll go from there. The learning gaps points that Trustee Haley made and others, I think it's really going to be a factor in asking people to come teach this summer. We are going to have some summer school, but it is going to be a struggle to get folks there. Some people mentioned about purple, and when will we get out of there? Dr. Black, following board direction, gave you the most optimistic schedule that you could possibly have on this. Is it going to happen? I don't know. Pigs might fly too, but I don't think it's likely. And so I want you to think about that in terms of when we meet again. We are talking about student activities, because we know those are happening right now. And I haven't done a particularly good job of talking about all the things that are available for kids outside of coming to campus. I can't remember. I think it was Anali, you who mentioned your teachers aren't giving breaks. In classrooms that I've been in, I've seen teachers do that, getting kids off the screen as time goes on. There are differences in terms of synchronous and asynchronous days. There's opinions. I'm delighted that you guys enjoyed the asynchronous days. The reviews have been mixed. Some kids have thought that they're not that good, and I would just say that we need to think about that issue really carefully, given how much time kids have on task and with instruction from teachers. And also, if you look at the calendar of our year, if you look at January and February, you've got a lot of already four-day schedules in there. And with the amount of time we don't know what we'll need for enrichment and those kinds of things, we're probably going to start out with synchronous days, at least in January and through President's Day. So that brings me to the board meeting on the 17th. You know, we have had report after report on this, the back to school committee. We can provide maybe a little bit more guidance in a week, but we may, if it's okay with you, we could give that a break on the 17th if you don't need to have us come back with other unanswered questions. And then the other part is, do you want to schedule a board meeting in early January to discuss where we are in terms of the tiers, or do you want us to push board meetings out until we have some sort of movement out of purple? In other words, if we're still with numbers like this and cases high and maybe headed higher, do you want to have a meeting in January, like January 7th, to talk about this? we're not scheduled, I think, again, to go right now until the 21st. So those are pieces where we need direction.
If we're still in purple, I don't see a big urgency or point to rushing back on January 7th. I mean, there's not a lot further in my mind to have a discussion about. I mean, we've basically got a plan and a schedule, a schedule in place if, when things improve. But, if things have not improved, I don't think that there's a whole lot of things to discuss, right out of the gate after the new year. That's my view.
Yeah, so I was just going to try to frame the discussion. I think there's two questions here, and I think Peter answered one very. Do you feel you can tell the district they have a plan? They're going to make little tweaks all along, as they do to every plan we had. Do we have a plan? Do you feel we can tell them and they should just move ahead with that? Two, on the timing, do you want a meeting? Do you want a meeting when we come out of purple to say, yes, we should go ahead? Or do you want to tell them when we come out of purple, then wait 14 days and go to phase 1, phase 2? You don't have to have a meeting, just plan on moving ahead when we leave purple and the state says we can open schools. So that's the two sorts of questions I think Dr. Skelly needs answered. Linda.
I have a question first. Is our first meeting in January actually the 24th?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I would prefer that we set a meeting on the 7th because there's always something that needs to be taken care of. There'll be some other business that needs to be done. And if we don't do that and wait till the 24th, we could have a meeting that goes till midnight because of backlog of items that weren't taken care of. So I prefer that we set the meeting. And then if it turns out there's not enough to justify a meeting, then we not go forward.
So I appreciate that comment, Mr. Warren, and I made a mistake. It's the 21st that we meet, so not the 24th. But yeah. To your point, I think what we'll do, what perhaps the trigger is, if on the 4th we're in purple, we don't meet unless we have other items to talk about. If we're in red by some act of God or miracle, then we would meet only if we had other agenda items that we needed to take care of. It couldn't wait till the 21st.
Yes, because I don't want to and if something happens and we have to meet before the 21st for some emergency, I would really prefer that any normal business that could be taken care of on the 7th be taken care of, so that when we come to the 24th, we're not overloaded with things 21st. And we don't give it enough time that way. So
do you feel, the other thing he asked Linda was, do you want to next week, do you want to go over the plan again, or you think it's where it needs to be at least until January?
I think we could get an update, and we could not a presentation, but just send us, of the plan, so that if there's an issue, we can talk about it.
I can include it in my comments if there's anything that needs to be added next week.
I would be fine with that.
Correct.
So I still think there's some operational issues that need to be either updated, and it doesn't have to be in the board, but what's going to happen practically? Are they prepared to go back to school whenever we go back to school? I think I agree with Linda. It would be fine to have 2 meetings in the month. I haven't looked at my calendar about the 7th, but we should have 2 meetings just to be on the safe side. I would like the plan to come by for final approval of where we lie. I still have some concerns about whether it is going to be synchronous, asynchronous. What the devil is in the details, and I'd like to know the details. So a final approval. You know, there's the proposal, let's go with it, this is it, and let's give it a board stamp of approval of the actual program. That would be fine, of the phases.
Well, do you want that approval next week, or you want to wait till we get into red?
Wait till January. That's fine with me.
Well, I think I would wait until we're actually in red and we're actually looking at setting a real timetable and coming back. Then I would be looking at you know, giving an approval and taking a vote on a final plan. That's when I would.
Yeah. So Bob, it's your turn, and I'll tell you how I interpret the consensus of the other three is the plan is where it is. When we get into red, you know, where it's there'll be meetings, and because we're scheduling a January 7th meeting, there'll be meetings every 2 weeks. So when we get into red, the final stamp of approval will be put on that plan.
Yeah, could I just add one comment before you speak, Mr. Griffin? And that is that we have to submit a reopening plan to the county. And so that's a step that we need to do. To Mr. Land's comment, if you want to actually take a vote and approve that, and I don't think that's what every board has done, then we should do that. Dr. Black, when would we have that plan ready to submit to the county?
We'll get it together whenever you want us to have it together.
Okay.
We could do it next week, or we could do it on the 7th or on the 21st.
Whenever you guys are ready.
We have the plan. It's just a matter of putting the pieces together. In terms of the Cal OSHA, we have all of that. So it's just a matter of getting the date and the instructional schedule.
You're saying it's just filling out a form.
Right. Then the other part is that each school needs to build theirs. So that's where we need the time, is for ingress, egress, pathways of travel. I mean, we have all the signage and whatnot on campus, but in terms of the particulars related to instructional schedule for each campus, that's what they will, each site will have to do.
Well, is the administration planning to work all the way through the holiday break?
No, that's 3 days.
Because if you're talking about having a meeting on the 7th, that's what you're talking about doing. Because you're talking about setting an agenda and posting an agenda and getting a plan. I mean, let's get real here.
So are we saying, when could we be ready? I mean, let's be practical. I agree with Peter. When can you get a plan for egress, regress, all the site plans combined with what you're talking about, and having the schedule ready? When would that be?
Okay, so for the county, the ingress, egress.
I don't see this necessity to have people working all the way through the holiday break to have a meeting on January 7th. We never do that. And we're in the worst surge that we've seen. We're in a worse surge and a worse condition than we were in March and April.
It sounds like.
What are we talking about here? We're in fantasy land here.
Let's hear from Bob.
We probably the length of the agendas and the length of the meetings have just been way too long. I would prefer to plan, at least put a placeholder, because we just have normal business to do. And if we don't need 2 meetings in January, I think everybody would be fine. And I think we would pretty well know that before people went away to get some really needed rest and recuperation. And then I think we need to let this kind of sit. There are times that I sit up late at night and I put what looks like the best plan in the world, and I think my project is 95%. I leave it for a day or 2. I come back and I'm just like, no, I don't think that's right. You kind of feel like, what was I looking at? And I think we need to collectively, maybe at the board level at least, let it sit, kind of let it rest, and then let's take a look at it and see if it looks the same way. Because I think when we do, in fact, when we're in the red zone or whatever, then we really should revisit it. And if we have to factor in getting a plan prepared to approve, for approval, yeah, we should allow some time. But I think we need to kind of take a time out here and come back fresh.
So before I call you, Greg, I'm just trying to bring a consensus, and I think Bob sort of stated it, which is you have a plan, and just let it sit, let it simmer, as Bob said, and then when we get to red, have a meeting. Now, if as Peter said, he doesn't think it's going to happen on January 7th, but as others said, well, it might happen on January 7th. So plan on January 7th. And if we're still doing whatever is, 200,000 cases a day in the country, and, we're deep in purple, you can cancel it. But if somehow it churns over, then you don't. I mean, why try to predict? Be variable. Greg?
That's fine. I think one question that comes up right now is the operational side, like what's due to the county. So I guess when would that be done, and when can we see that? And then that is part of I like what Bob had to say. I don't think we're in a big rush here. So give yourselves time. I don't think we need to do this over Christmas break or winter break. Give January some time to do this. I don't have a problem with that. But I think we need to have a plan, and we need to see it. We need to approve it. So if we're going to do that on January 21st, that's fine with me.
Okay.
The county has a great resource on the website. All the schools that have had their plans approved are all listed there. We in October had created a reopening plan for the cohorts, and each school did their ingress and egress. So we have a lot of it just ready to go. We just have to put it together, bring it to the board, get your input, then revise it and bring it to the county. I think the county, I don't know how fast they'll turn it around. It just depends on the quality. But given that we have all of those other examples that have been approved, I think we'll have a very quality, reopening plan that will, satisfy what they're looking for, because we already know what they're looking for.
So Dr. Skelly, I think what you have is you need to continually update the board on what's going on as the plan is smaller changes are made to it. But the broader outline is you have consensus to move to that. Yeah. And when you come back with a formal board meeting to move ahead, it's going to be dependent on, it's going to be dependent on when the county starts moving to red.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Peter doesn't believe it's at all possible January 7th, but others sort of say, if it happens January 7th, we're ready to go.
All right. I think it's good. Oh, sorry.
Linda.
Yeah. Again, I just want to make sure we don't overload the 21st. And if in fact we need to meet the week before or whatever, that there is a placeholder so that we don't have so much other business on the 21st that we just can't get it all. It becomes a very, very late night, and we're not as effective.
Yeah, and we talked last time, and Mr. Griffin and Mr. Hanley and I have agenda setting on tomorrow. But one of the topics is that retreat as well. So we do need to bring Lee into the board and rebuild team and all that. So okay, I think we know enough now to go from there.
Good.
Fine. Item M2, presentation approval of the positive certification of the 2020-2021 first interim fiscal report.
Okay, so this is Ms. McManus's item. This is her penultimate agenda item. Next meeting, she'll be back for a discussion about the draft construction schedule for the project here. Joining her today are the amazing V's, Vanessa and Valerie. This will be, I know it's a late hour. Ms. McManus has plotted out all the stops to make this a really good agenda item, as well as good as you can do on a first interim. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to her.
You're on mute.
Liz, yourself.
Thank you. So we're just going to go through the first interim, and we'll go through this pretty rapidly. There's some things that you have to look at because I think we're in a different territory right now. And then at the end, you will consider approving it, positive certification, and we can move on. So with that, can we put the presentation on the screen?
Yeah, we're working on it here.
Oh, perfect.
I can do it if you want.
We got it. Yes, yes.
Yeah, we got it here. Hold on 1 second.
All right, perfect. This should be a short presentation, probably 2 hours, 15 minutes.
Sorry.
Okay.
You go 2 hours and 30 minutes. Ms. McManus, if you go 2 hours and 30 minutes, I have to leave because my term is up.
Next slide, please.
Go slow, Liz.
Okay, I'll try to go slow. I'm trying to get the energy level back. We're going to cover the regular stuff, which we always do, the budget, the changes since the budget was adopted, the 2021 first interim report. What are the assumptions for going into the multi-year projections, the certification, the considerations that you need to really look at as we're, with this budget as we're moving forward, because I think there's going to be a lot of things that, a lot of it's been talked about tonight that will need to be addressed, moving on into the adopted budget and also the state budget, because there are some inklings of information out there about the state budget. Next slide, please. This is the calendar. As you know, we adopt the budget by June 30th. The first interim is due by the 15th. It's based on actuals through the 31st. The second interim is based on actuals through the 31st, and the board approves it by the March 15th. We then, after we close the books, we do the estimated actuals, and then when we do the adopted budget, we do the estimated actuals, and then we do the unaudited actuals in September. So these are the trigger points for when we really look at things and see, if we're trending right or if there's changes or something happened. Next slide, please. So instead of having the accounting cartoons, I thought having COVID cartoons would be more appropriate this year, because I think, we're in a pandemic. We've learned a lot. I looked at this one with Mona Lisa, Stages of Quarantine, and I'm thinking we all can kind of identify with her, because it's been a tough year and we've all kind of changed through the process and we've learned new things. Next slide, please. You used to think of going on a cruise. It was great. Under COVID, cruises have a different meaning these days. Next slide. Craig, this is for you. Teachers 2020, the one where parents realized you rocked. Next slide, please. And this is the final one, which I thought was rather humorous. When COVID-19 is over and you finally finish your 8th grade education. Let's hope we don't go this long, but I just, we've got to have a little bit of levity as we're, hopefully getting out of this pandemic. Next slide. Okay, perfect. Oh, and this is another one. It was, I want you to know the school board is very pleased with their efforts to make this new budget work. And I'm just thinking, this feels like with all the plans that we've had with COVID, it's like we do something on Monday and Tuesday it's old, and Wednesday we have a new one, and Thursday. And so I feel as if we've got a plan for every way and every thing that we could could ever happen, I think the district has gone through all the efforts to make it happen. I think that was the last one. Next slide, please. So when we adopted the budget, we thought we would start the year with a $21.5 million budget. We had a deficit spending amount of 2.5. We predicted in June we would end the year with $19 million, representing a 10.2% ending balance. Next slide. Between the adopted budget and the first interim, a lot of stuff has happened. Our revenues have increased by 2.72%, or close to $5 million. 74.6% of this money came from new sources, 3.7 million. 25 was for deferred monies, or $1.3 million. Our revenues from coming in from property taxes are changing. We saw a slight decrease of less than 1%, or $1 million. And what we found here is that we really haven't seen that. We're seeing secured taxes go down and unsecured go up. But what we're seeing, the big tremendous growth, is in restricted revenue sources. And those increased by $6 million. That's a lot of money. As I said before, $1.3 million was for deferred revenues from prior year programs. We also carried forward $288,000 for grants where we did not receive the revenue last year, nor did we incur any debt. And then the rest, the 4.8, is for new grants in the current year. And that really is composed of the federal and the state CARES grants. That one-time money has played a significant part in this year's budget. Next, please. So when we're looking at unrestricted revenue changes, what we're seeing is the secured property taxes went down by 2.5, unsecured went up by 1.4. We saw a slight increase in the state aid, which is our fair share for basic aid districts. That was because we were told the state was going to deficit these numbers, in the May revise, and that did not come to fruition. That's good. And the same thing with DTEC is we were told that there was going to be a deficit to the money that we provide to DTEC, but then it was not deficited, so we actually owed them, the charter school, more money. Local revenues went up by went down by $212,000, while it went up by site donations and $70,000. We lost a lot of contracts in transportation, $321,000, because we do a lot of, we have a lot of little side businesses down in transportation. We ran out parking spaces to a couple different vendors, and we also rented out spaces to for students. So those contracts have vaporized. Next, please. Restricted revenue changes, again, represented a 36.2% growth, $6 million of new revenue, of new restricted revenue. Lion's share was coming in from the federal and the state CARES Act. We also had additional parent donations of $80,000, and we also had other fundraising through the district for $145,000. Next, please. Again, we had deferred revenue of $1.3 million for federal, and then we had also incurred $288,000 of additional money for grants that were for last year. The revenue was never received, nor the anything spent, so that will be reposted to the current year. Same thing with TUPE. We had some carryover with TUPE and strong workforce for $398,000. Next, please. Okay, this just, we deferred we deferred the local grants that all the schools receive. That came back and reposted into revenues for $702,000. It's every year we have a significant amount of money in this area. These monies are usually donated by local sources and they're for specific uses. Next, please. So going into our expenditures, we saw our expenditures increase by 1.5%, which is close to $3 million. In our unrestricted general fund, the expenses actually went down by 2.4% or $3.3 million. That usually doesn't happen because you have to remember at the first interim report, we reappropriate in the unrestricted general fund all the carryover. And when we closed the books, we had $1 million of carryover that has now been reposted into that budget. Our certificated salaries went down by $1.7 million. $368,000 was due to the reduction in certificated sub expense because, everybody, we don't have the use. And then 1.4 million was for the professional development expense was transferred out of the unrestricted general fund into the restricted general fund for the CARES Act. Because with those CARES grants, I think it's 80% of the monies have to be spent by December 31st. So we've been doing, the staff has been doing a lot of work with, all the PD associated with distant learning. Our classified salaries went down by $100,000. And again, most of this was the result of sub-expense because, of the pandemic. Our health and welfare went down by $786,000. And this is the good news. The good news is that our workers' comp rate was projected to be higher. And after the budget was adopted, we were notified the rate was actually slightly lower. So this is money that, is going to fall to the bottom line. Next slide, please. Books and supplies are decreased by $2 million. Textbooks went down by $400,000. That's kind of something I'm going to talk about later, but that's kind of unusual. A lot of materials were again transferred into the CARES grant, and you'll see that on the restricted expenditures in the tune of $1.6 million. Services and other operating expenses increased by $1.3 million. We saw a decrease in operating and housekeeping of close to $200,000. Our utility expense went down by $200,000 because people are not coming to our schools. We're not seeing water utilization. We're not seeing electric bills because we are distant learning. However, our consulting contracts and our contracts for software have gone up by $1.4 million because we had to put systems in place to make sure our distant learning was successful. And this is, there was a lot of stuff that needed to be implemented, and you heard it being talked about this evening. Next slide, please. So restricted expenditures, the revenues went up by $6 million, which means the expenses will also go up by $6 million. What we saw is certificated salaries went up by $870,000. This is pretty much professional development. We also charge the technology TOSAs to the CARES Act. In classified salaries, we saw increases of $275,000. Small change in instructional aid, but the big change was mid-year we're implementing 11 FTEs for health aides because at some point we will be bringing students back and we will need to be monitoring temperatures and monitoring and tracking the pandemic. Health and welfare went up by $331,000. It's really a result of the changes in certificated salaries and classified salaries. Next slide, please. Materials and supplies increased by 3.7. 800,000 was for staff, technology, and supplies. 625 was for Chromebooks. 700 was for PP&E. We also had a lot of the deferred revenue and unspent grants were reappropriated in supplies to the tune of $1.3 million. Services and other expenses increased by 1.2. Close to $1 million of this was for special ed contracts for MPA and NPS. We also saw a small decrease in consulting contracts and increases of $365,000 of because of communication changes with the hotspots, Comcast, T-Mobile, Verizon. Next slide, please. So after we closed the books and we did the unaudited actuals and we finished the first interim report, our beginning balance is now $23.6 million. And our deficit went down from 2.5 to 400,000. That's a significant, change. Our ending balance is, if everything goes as planned, will be 23 million, representing a basic aid reserve of 12.3%. Next slide. So here is it's pretty easy to read this, like 4-point type. This looks, we trended the 2019, 20, 2021, and 20 adopted, and then the 2021 first interim, so that you could see where the changes were going in the unaudited, with the unrestricted general fund. And the points that were previously raised, you can see this in the number. Next slide, please. This is the same slide, only for the restricted general fund. We've trended it for 1920, then the 2021 adopted in the first interim. I was trying to show with this because, we're now in 2 years of, 2 years of a pandemic, and I went back, I think it was 4 years, because I wanted to see where a normal trend was outside a pandemic and see what our usual spend was. And so I decided that at least if we looked at 19, 3/4 of the year was, not COVID oriented, and we could get an idea what a normal, where the normal spend was in the district. But you can see things that have happened, and we talked about earlier, the changes in the transfers. Next slide, please. And this is the summary. Next slide. So going into 21-22, we are anticipating our secured property taxes to increase by 3.5%. We will contribute a portion of the new monies to, so for the 12% basic aid reserve. We have put step and column in there of $1.2 million. There will be a rate reduction in STRS, but PERS is increasing. Net, the increase will be $600,000. We have no new positions. Any position, anything charged to the CARES grant this year is out of the projections for the 21-22 general fund budget. So if something's being charged to the CARES Act, next year it is out of the budget. And I just want to make sure that that's clear. That includes the 11 FTEs for the health aides, the TOSAs, all the, all the professional development. So these are things that really need to be looked at. Also, what's not in this budget is there is not a compensation increase. So that means there's not a compensation increase in 2021, 21, 22, or 22, 23. We anticipated MPA and MPS contracts to increase by 5%, and utilities will also increase by 5%. That's a concern because basically our buildings have not been utilized. When we start them all up, I think we're going to see maybe a little bit of a larger bump than a 5%. Next slide, please. So then here, oops, back one. Okay, thanks. 22-23, these are the assumptions for the budget. Again, secured property taxes 3.5%. That will generate $5.4 million. $700,000 will be applied to the new money into the 12% basic aid reserve. We have included step and call movement. The STRS rate will go back to the original projection, and as well as the PERS rate. So this will be an additional $2.5 million coming out of expenditures. We have no new positions. We have no salary schedule compensation increase. Again, the 11 health aid positions have been eliminated. We increased MPA and MPS by 5%. And again, utility for cost of living increases. Next slide. So this is what the multi-year projections look like. Next slide. So based, districts can either certify their financial reports as positive, qualified, or negative. Positive, it means that we will be able to meet our financial obligations for the current and the consecutive 2 fiscal years. This is what we're bringing forth to you, that we will be able to be positive, and we're recommending a positive certification. Next slide. Okay, all right. Considerations that really need to be discussed and thought about is we had a lot of program carryover deferred revenue in the budget. And in addition, this year we received $4.6 million of additional CARES grant. And that money is being used to pay for essential salaries, supplies, and contracts. So in there includes professional development, the technology ITCs, the 11 classified health aids, the student Chromebooks, software contracts, conference software contracts, paperless processing software, hotspots, and access for students for access for technology. While that's being charged to a grant right now, I'm not sure all of it's going to go away. And I think that the staff and the board have to really look at this and determine, what can go away and what may need to be retained, because I don't think it's feasible that all of it's going to, be eliminated. Also, it just looks as if there's a change in the trends from our property taxes. I haven't really seen a decrease in secure taxes to the degree that we saw. And so it's just something to kind of monitor moving forward. Our utility use will increase with the return of staff and students, especially as we're all washing our hands every 8 seconds. Student instructional catch-up to solidify the student's foundation is going to be essential. What that looks like, you've seen some costs tonight, but this is going to be something that is going to be expected to occur. We also, when I looked at the budget and I saw the decrease in textbook purchases, I'm not sure that's realistic, because if students are back in the classroom, are we going to stay in Chromebook world, or are we going to kind of balance it with additional textbooks? This year, we addressed to some extent digital equity. And next year, this is all going to be coming out because it was a CARES Act. Is the district going to want to look at this for the future budgets? We also have the EL learning gaps. We know that all of our students have been impacted by COVID, and there's going to be some type of need to try to fast track the EL students to make up for the COVID and get them foundations and a good education that they, that they need. We also, employee compensation, there's no employee compensation in the current year and the next two budgets. That's going to have to be looked at. We've removed all PPE and the testing, and maybe a great portion of that goes away, but I'm not sure the entire enchilada goes away. So this is something that's really going to have to be looked at. And then lastly, and this is just something that that has to get done, is all the departments have a lot of files up at Crestmore. And so those have to all be scanned. That may require a professional organization to come in and complete that. People are going up there and weeding the files now, but some of them may need to be either housed as permanent records or microfished. Next slide, please. The state budget. So the state budget actually doesn't look as bleak as it was presented to the state in June. The rebound has been quicker. COVID-19 consequences have been severe, but they haven't been catastrophic. And the low-income residents are out of work. They've been very negatively impacted, but high-income residents seem to have been spared through the process. Recent data collections and expenditures are pretty consistent with the economic picture. We're $11 billion ahead of revenue collections to date. That's big. So in other words, 22% increase in revenues from that, what was originally projected. The tax collections have been very positive for high-end earners, specifically capital gains, and we're ahead of the 2021 projections. Medi-Cal and CalFresh participation has been less than what was originally projected. So that has had another, positive impact on the state's budget. And the estimated tax windfall is for 21-22 is expected to be $26 billion. This will allow the state to distribute money to a variety of different programs. However, this is money that is one-time in nature. Next slide, please. Oops, one back, please. So the state will start to experience a deficit. It's going to be very small in 21-22, but they're anticipating it to grow to $17 billion in 24-25. So they will be looking at ways to probably feather in changes so that they can address the deficit moving forward. There may be more money for K-12 education. I think if it comes in because of Prop 98, it'll probably come in the form of an LCFF. There's other needs. They need $5 billion more revenue to offset the deficit in 21-22, and $35 billion will be needed to offset the deficit in 24-25. One-time pandemic needs to mitigate adverse economic situations and health consequences. For some of the residents in this state, specifically the lower income, small businesses, restaurants are going to need help because there are a lot of people who are in pretty, have been just decimated. The other thing that we need to look at is, the state usually comes up with a budget projection in January. With a pandemic, nobody's really getting together all that frequently. So getting new, fresh information timely may not happen. There will be delays in us getting information. So the last slide. Thank you. With this, I wanted to say thank you to Valerie and Vanessa, and I wanted to welcome Rose Chai to our team. And this is my accounting cartoon for Val and Vanessa, which is truly an auditor's perspective. So, thank you. And with that, I'll go back and ask that you certify the first interim report as positive.
First, I guess we're going to take comments. We can have a motion before or after comments. I don't care. Greg, do you have any comments?
Amazing to look at a multi-year projection and see it so positive like that in such a crazy time. So Liz, you and your team are quite magicians, I think. And I've always been in awe of what you do. And it's nice to end on this note, right? For retirement is like, oh yeah, this is good. The only comment I will make on the considerations is I think you hit something on the head. With the 4.6 one-time monies, we really did need that money for things that we're trying to work on, and equity gaps and digital gaps. And we are going to have to invest in that in our regular budget. And so that is definitely a consideration that I think is going to be important. When you mention it, I think I'm glad you did, because that is something we are going to have to look at and make some sacrifices and make some changes in the budgets to prepare in the future. So I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you said that. And I think it's important that we continue that. That's really my only comment, except really, you guys are amazing. Liz, you are amazing, you and your team. You are going to be missed. I'm just going to say that. Okay.
Thank you.
Linda, Ms. Lee Schreier.
I guess I really appreciate the presentation, particularly as you laid out what benefit the CARES Act has been to us, because I know I was really concerned where all the technology money was going to come from and all the things that we needed. So I think the way you laid that out was excellent. And I also agree with you that some of these costs are going to be ongoing, like the health aides. I mean, we don't know how long we're really going to need them. And we don't know how long we're going to be, needing other equipment and extra water and all these things in the schools. And I can certainly anticipate an additional expenses in our utilities when everyone comes back. And then we may find that some utilities don't work as well as they did before, and we have a few repairs that need to be done. So I think there's going to be things happen down the line. And I will tell you that when meetings are over and I sleep at night, I sleep better because of the 2 V's in you, because I know that you have the best interest of the district and somehow you manage all of that money and it's spent appropriately. So thank you.
Thanks. Peter.
Yeah, thanks for the extensive work that's obviously gone into this. And I agree, as I've said a number of times, that we have a lot of unknowns facing us in terms of possible expenses. And I think, coming back, when we are able to come back, if we are able to come back at some point, there's just a lot of unknowns as to what we'll face. Even going into the next academic year, it's unclear exactly, what the costs are and in exactly what form will come back, even into next fall. So I think there's, it pays to be cautious, and the CARES Act money, obviously was a big assistance to us. Yeah. I think it's very clear that we need to continue to be mindful of our budget and mindful of the uncertainties that are still out there, because we just don't know where this where this pandemic is going and exactly how fast we're going to get out of it. So thanks again for all your work, and we certainly are going to miss you.
Thank you.
Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, the V's and Ms. McManus. You used every cartoon in the library, so now you got to go because you got nothing else to entertain us with. So, you know, I guess the CARES money in this latest reiteration, they have totally ignored local governments, and they're primarily focused on the unemployment. And I think they probably really need to be looking at some money for the local governments. The other thing, property taxes, I'm really concerned about that. And we don't know enough to figure out what it really means, but that twitch in property taxes has not been there for a long time. And I was thinking about what that could be. And, you know, it occurs to me that that people are leaving all this office space, and these commercial buildings are dropping like stones in terms of value. And it won't be long before everybody will be requesting reappraisals or reassessments. And we know we all participate in everybody's bad news. And I think that's something we really need to watch beside the expenditure side, with all the the equipment that we're going to need to get through the pandemic. So we just got to be really vigilant.
So thank you. I think this is really, both to the V's and Liz, it's a really good budget, excellent detail. I think it shows the picture as is, and it shows how things could get better or could get worse. You know, it shows all those aspects. You know, you start with the state, and as the state, it was at the end of the presentation, but as Liz said, you know, the poor people are being hit on the head while the wealthier are doing really well. We have both. I think that's absolutely true. That's why the state budget has all these billions of extra dollars, is because the wealthy and the investors, you know, that they're the ones who pay the taxes. Okay, and to be blunt, they're sort of cleaning up despite the pandemic. I mean, just look the last 2 days on the stock market. DoorDash and Airbnb had massive IPOs in their San Francisco companies, made, I forget the number, many hundreds of new millionaires in our area, San Francisco, San Mateo, and they're all going to be paying taxes, you know, and the poor people don't even have jobs.
Right.
And they're just getting killed by the pandemic. And that's sort of where Bob was saying, you know, or someone was saying, that's why the future iterations of federal money has to go to jobs, poor people, and that. You know, I also looked at, you know, looking at the projections and these are quick projections when you make them for this budget, but you're showing, you know, at the end of 2 years from now, a 29.5 million ending balance. I know, I'm going to address that, and a 15.5% reserve. Okay. Now there's two things I have two worries or two issues with that, or worries or tactics. One is, has been discussed, I'm not sure we've really captured all the extra money we're going to have to spend for, I'm not talking about safety, for making up learning, whether it's summer school this year or, as Peter said, the next summer. You know, I think that cost can go into the 5s and 10s of millions of dollars. You know, if you really do it, if, you know, we're all of a sudden for a year, we're going to have a 250-day work year or a 230-day work year for teachers to make up for those 3,000 kids. So who knows where that you know, that it's going to be there. On the other hand, as Bob mentioned, there's the, you know, what's going to happen with the property taxes. So I think you used a good number, the, you know, 3.5%. You know, on one side, commercial is getting killed. On another side, on the other side, residential hits new records every day.
Yeah.
You know, new, you know, housing for all of us own houses, I believe, right, on this board. They've gone up probably 10, 15% since COVID started. You know, so I hate, you know, it's just amazing. Amazing is the right word. It's just sort of counterintuitive. And who knows what's going to happen with the overall thing. The good news is for us, for you as a board going forward, you usually don't project and spend that money. What you usually do is come December, you actually have a hard number. You know, it went up 7%, it went up 5%, it went up 8%, or it was only going up 3.5%. So in June, the future board will know if that 3.5% is right, or if it's 7% again, because we get a hard number, you know, that's realistic. So that's the good news, you know, that, you know, we don't have to make an expenditure. The board does not have to make an expenditure commitment based on a projection. The board can make an expenditure commitment based on what that actual number is in June. So that's the good news. I'll remind all of you. So, you know, just wait till June, see what the property tax number is, and then make your decision. Liz and I will be drinking margaritas somewhere. So that's my comments. Any other questions or motion?
I'll make a motion to approve a positive certification of the first interim report.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Land, second by Ms. Lees-Dwyer. Mr. Land?
Yes.
Ms. Lees-Dwyer?
Yes.
Mr. Hanley?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, all three of you, for hard work and a very thorough presentation. Item 01, approval of personnel actions. I only have an hour and 50 minutes left, Kirk.
This should be quick then.
Why don't you read the whole list,
Read
Chris.
all of them.
Read
It's
all
only
of them.
14 pages.
I know.
So just the actions in addendum?
You can read both.
Approval.
Okay, so the motion was made by Mr. Hanley, second by Mr. Land. Mr. Land?
I thought we were going to read all of them.
I thought you made a motion, Peter. Did you?
Yeah,
I did.
I was joking. Yes, Mark.
Miss Lees-Dwyer?
Can I have some time to think about it?
No.
Yes.
I want to get a free hour out of this term.
No.
Mr. Hanley?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You didn't vote.
Oh, I vote yes. Motion carries
Thank
5-0.
you.
Last item on the agenda, approve the job description for the team facilitator at Cappuccino High School.
These are for
last item. This is your last item, Mr. Friedman.
Yeah.
Future
And it still
board
goes
agenda.
over 10, it's still later than 10 o'clock. No, we always talk about future item board review.
Okay, this is a job
My last
description.
action item, yes.
It's a good one. So it's for the houses at Cappuccino for team facilitators paid for out of the climate funds at the school.
Do I hear a motion to pass?
I motion to approve.
Approve. Thank you. So motion by Mr. Land, second by Mr. Griffin. Mr. Land?
Yes.
Miss Lees-Dwyer?
Yeah.
Mr. Hanley?
Yes.
And Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Okay, this is my final vote. Have you figured out, Dr. Skelly, how many votes I've taken in 9.5 years? So,
Have you?
No, but I thought you figured out all those other statistics I had no idea about.
He just made those up.
So for my final vote, I vote yes, and the motion carries 5-0. Last item, requested, board operations and requested board items for future agendas. Yes, Ms. Lees-Dwyer.
I would like to have a discussion on recognition of people like Millie Swan, Larry Teixeira. I'm certain there are others in the district. Tom Moore, I know, was recognized with a clock tower, but I still think I would really like us to look at how we can recognize these contributors to the district, because I really believe they deserve to be honored.
I think that's a good idea. I think at least for open for discussion and
Yes, to talk about it.
Yeah.
You have that, Dr. Skelly, for your list?
Yeah.
I guess to give to Mr. Griffin when he sets the agendas. Anyone else? Thank you all very much. It's been, forget the whole night, it's been a difficult year to be president, I'll tell you that.
You are super at Zoom now. You know that, right?
Yeah. You know, it's also because I teach, you know, too.
Yeah.
Which is no fun, but okay. So does anyone have any comments, or should I adjourn the meeting? You're all looking at me.
Why
Meeting
isn't
adjourned.
Laura? You know, Laura
Bye.
never said anything all night. Can Laura just say something?
Go on, Laura. You could say I adjourned the meeting. It's just, this is casual comment.
I've really enjoyed our time together, and I just wish you the best. I think the world is your oyster.
Yes, I hope so.
Are you going to Hawaii?
And I hope, Peter, I hope you're wrong. I hope COVID actually slows down to a very low crawl by the summer. I mean,
Yeah.
none of us have any control. I mean, you just have to do what you just have to roll with the punches.
Skelly stood up, so I think that we're either
Yeah,
taking
he
a
wants to
break
go home.
or the meeting's
So,
over.
the meeting's over.
All right.
I can bye. Actually,
Thanks a lot.
I can leave, and Kevin's the one who's going to turn it off.
All right.
Aw,
He's the
don't
host.
leave.
Mark, take it easy.
Thank you,
Bye,
Mark, for
everyone.
everything.
Mark.
Good
All right.
night.
Thank you.
Enjoy the meetings.